have a collaborative evening tonight with the Transportation Committee as well as Parks and Environment. Do we have Daria coming on
You know,
tonight
she has a
perhaps?
sick child. I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
she's coming. She may be online. She said she would try.
Okay, well, we're grateful to her because she did participate in the prep for this, and everyone should know that we as co-chairs got together. We got together as co-chairs on the weekend to talk about this meeting in advance of this meeting, to try and make it as productive as possible.
Good idea.
And so this is a follow-on to the last conversation that we've had about one of the many hot public safety topics in our community, and that is what is broadly called e-bikes, but I know we can be more precise in our language. So what we're going to do first, before we move forward with the conversation, producers warm up, is we're going to ask for someone to move our agenda onto the table.
Second move.
Thank you, oh my goodness.
Not all at once.
Yes, second, okay, great. And we have tonight, hi Lottie, we have tonight a lot of people joining online. I want to introduce Linda Alexander, who is a public member of Parks and Environment, who is joining us tonight to help facilitate this meeting and also as a member of that committee jointly participating. So I want to quickly walk us through, and this isn't part of the warm-up. This is something that it occurred to me would be beneficial to do the last time that we had a meeting, and that is to just take a very quick look ahead to what we'll be doing tonight. We are going to talk in just a moment, and one of our several presenters is here. And we'll hear from her in just a moment. Alexis Stikas is here, and two of her colleagues will be here momentarily. And then we're going to have some, I imagine, robust Q&A about what we hear from the public as well as members of our various committees. And I think the more we can collaborate as committees, the better. So we've been talking about cross-committee collaboration for a long time on this board, and I'm happy to see under Alex that we're doing more and more of that. So I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. We're then going to have a bit of an update on our public safety survey, as well as some conversations we've been having around social media, and using public safety as one way to engage the public on social media. But also perhaps board-wide and really just have a little bit of a brainstorming session, which we think will be kind of fun at the back half of the meeting. And then we'll take a look ahead to next month and what we'll be doing in April as a task force. So I think I've vamped all I can, Alexis. Oh, maybe they're here. Looks like they are. Alexis, do you feel comfortable kind of starting as they walk through the door?
Yes.
So this is Alexis Stikas,
And
and we've met, we feel like old friends because we've been doing a lot of texting and emailing over the course of the last week. But she has agreed to begin what will be a conversation of 3 or 4 voices this evening, talking about safe streets. And I guess I'll let you introduce yourself beyond that because I don't want to step on your thunder. And then your colleagues will come in and you can introduce them in turn.
great.
And thank you for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience while we figured this out. You got folks here. Hi, my name is Alexis Stikas. I am the New York organizer with Families for Safe Streets. Families for Safe Streets is an organization made up of people who have been affected by traffic violence. Our members are people who have lost loved ones or themselves been injured in vehicle crashes. And we provide support, help with navigating like immediately post crash. And then we do a lot of advocacy to try and make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else ever again. So I have a couple of Families for Safe Streets members here, but I think first I'll let Elizabeth introduce you. We're just getting started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us. Great to be here with you all. My name is Elizabeth Adams. I'm with Transportation Alternatives and Families for Safe Streets. And I work primarily on our policy advocacy legislation at the city and state level. So here to support with any questions or conversation and looking forward to.
I'm just giving a notice because of the meeting. I've been asked to make sure that this is a 10-minute conversation. So I'll let you guys know straight on. It's a big one.
She'll give you a heads up when you're coming up against your 10 minutes and then you can pass it on. And that doesn't include the Q&A portion. That's just anything you're not gonna say up front.
And each person?
For each of the two of them, and then I thought we said you'd participate in a public dialogue. So you'll come in after.
I think I was part of their team. I just didn't realize.
She's gonna have most of my 10 minutes.
You'll come in, it's casual, this is pretty casual, so you'll come in, I got your back. You'll come in when they're finished, and then we'll have our Q&A.
Yeah, so I know that we're here to talk a little bit about e-bike safety and, I want to open it up to Roz, actually, who is an e-biker. And then when we, I'm not sure, I think she's on, we have Kate, Brockwell on the Zoom, who is a survivor of a crash. Actually, if Kate maybe could start and share.
I'm looking for her name.
Oh, maybe she raised her.
Okay.
Wait here.
Rockwell, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw her.
Yeah.
Yep.
You got her. I promoted.
Sorry,
Good
I
work, too.
have a question about the
Okay,
time
sure.
restriction. I thought we're matching the time.
We are,
Oh,
we're
great.
matching the
Okay, cool.
time.
Okay.
They've
just
got
wanted to-
4 presenters, Janet was 1 presenter.
Okay.
So we're just trying to make sure that their time is fairly equal
Okay,
to
it
the
was
time
the
she
same.
had.
Okay, perfect.
And
Yeah.
then the Q&A,
Great,
which
okay.
will, I'm sure, be
Okay, I've
extensive.
already given you guys
Perfect.
3 extra minutes. We're really good, just for
Cool.
this moment. Okay, we're good.
Okay,
You see Kate, right?
she's up there.
Okay, cool.
Okay, do you want Kate to go next?
Yeah, Kate, can you share your story?
So 1 minute, 1 second.
Technical difficulty.
Okay,
Kate, you should be able to speak now.
Okay.
I unmuted you.
Can
Go
you hear
ahead.
me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks for inviting me to be here. My name is Kate Brockwell, and I'm the co-chair of Families for Safe Streets New York, a volunteer role I spend dozens of hours a week on because I don't want more people to have to join our ranks. I was living in CB7 when I was hit in Lower Manhattan as a pedestrian. I was in the crosswalk with the light. I'd stopped on the curb. I'd looked both ways twice before starting to cross.
No, she's not.
Wait, 1 second, 1 second. We're
Hold
gonna
on, Kate, we're
gonna
having trouble
turn
hearing
up the
you.
volume a little bit.
It's not.
Okay, try again.
Should I start over or you heard well enough?
That's much better now.
This is clear.
If it's not too difficult for you, Kate, to begin again, I know it's a hard topic,
Sure.
but
No,
people,
sure.
thank you, Kate.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me to be here. My name is Kate Brockwell, and I'm the co-chair of Families for Safe Streets New York, a volunteer role I spend dozens of hours a week on because I don't want more people to have to join our ranks.
Yeah. No.
I was living in CB7 when I was hit in Lower Manhattan as a pedestrian. I was in the crosswalk with the light. I'd stopped on the curb. I'd looked both ways twice before starting to cross. Yes, really. And this was the last day of 2017, before e-bikes became as popular as they are. I never got to enjoy being a recklessly free pedestrian. The driver didn't see me. It was mid-afternoon, gray, clear. He'd stopped at the top of Elizabeth Street before attempting to turn left onto Houston. He didn't appear to be on his phone. He'd stopped for a pedestrian ahead of me in the crosswalk. Then he accelerated into me. He was driving a BMW 5 Series, which I learned later is one of the heaviest sedans on the planet. So 4,000 pounds of metal, glass, rubber, and plastic drove into my left side. Ligaments in my wrists and forearms were torn as I hit the hood, and the shearing force of the car hitting my leg caused something called a closed degloving injury. That is, the force of the vehicle colliding with my shin and knee caused the layers of bone, muscle, ligaments, fascia, and nerves to tear apart horizontally. That's what the shearing force of a motor vehicle does to a human body. It's basic physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. 4,000-pound car. I know I'm lucky. It wasn't a taller, heavier truck. The driver also wasn't going fast, since he'd been stopped when he'd seen the other person. The black Lincoln Navigators that are standing everywhere in this neighborhood weigh 5.5 or 6,000 pounds, and their hood strikes the pedestrian or cyclist at the torso or head, which is much more often fatal. A UPS truck weighs 10,000 pounds. I've had some scary encounters with e-bikes myself. I empathize, I really do. I became a member of Families for Safe Streets because I was seriously injured by a motor vehicle. The data shows this: cars and trucks cause the overwhelming majority of serious injuries and fatalities. It's physics. I know intimately the horror of being injured when I'd done everything right as a pedestrian. It meant there was nothing keeping me or my loved ones from being hit again. Being careful is not enough. And that's why I am here tonight. When you've been hit by a car through no fault of your own, when you haven't been hit by a car through no fault of your own, you don't understand how real that risk is. Our brands are trying to protect us. I'm part of the 99% of New Yorkers whose traffic violence injuries were caused by a car or truck. Force equals mass times acceleration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation and for sharing such a painful story with us and your courage in being here tonight. We're going to reset the clock because when victims of any violence come before us, we don't time. I just want to be really clear about that. We didn't time last time and we're not going to do that tonight. So where do you want to go next, Alexis, with the presentations?
I think Charles can talk a little bit about.
I'm gonna stand up so you can see my shirt. McLuhan said meeting was a message, and in part, my message is me in this shirt. But, I am, I come today as Dr. Jean Roussos, a neuropsychologist who takes care of people with severe brain injuries, many of whom got that injury from the car crash. And I practice in a sort of unique way. I go to people's homes. I have two people that I've worked with for over 20 years. And I mean, one of them is a man who now is 62 years old, and his parents are still taking care of him and pulling his pants up in the morning and feeding him and doing all these things. I go there every week. Actually, lately he's been sick, so I haven't. This is the passion and dedication of these families fuels me to advocate strongly to do whatever we can for traffic violence, and that includes traffic violence caused by two-wheel vehicles. I'm not saying that does not happen, but it overwhelmingly, the laws of physics, as Kate talked about, it's the cars that are causing by far and away the damage. And yes, there's some things that we can do. I am an e-bike rider. It kept I used to live in this area, actually. I went to Barnard and we then lived on 67th Street. That was like 58 years ago. And I rode my bike then, and I always rode the bike in New York City. That's how I prefer to get around. But as time wore on, it became more and more difficult. Not that Queensboro Bridge, for instance, or Hills. And so I got an e-bike. And actually during COVID, I do have a car, took my car off the road for a whole year and rode that bike. And part of it was, for instance, one time I had a squamous cell carcinoma on my shin, and I had to have surgery. And I said to the doctor, I was going to ride my bike to the surgery. Can I ride home? He said, well, you can't pedal. I said, good, I have a throttle. Okay, so it makes me want to explain a little bit about e-bikes, because first of all, there are different classes of e-bikes. The class 1 e-bikes are limited in their speed, top speed approximately 18 to 20 miles an hour. Class 2 similarly, but it also has a throttle. What is a throttle? It allows you to get going at an intersection, or if you're starting up on, have you ever tried to ride a bike starting up on a hill? It's hard. So this the throttle lets you do that. it also let me ride home to Queens without pedaling, just using the throttle. Now, you may have seen many riders, and the ones that are scary to me as well as to you,
Yes.
on the class 3 e-bikes. And one way you can tell is they're not pedaling, they're just doing this. And that's why people think, gives throttles a bad name. But
Doctor, I'm just gonna
Yes.
tell you, we've got a few more minutes because we've got for the timing, so.
yeah, no, I
it's
know,
an- And it's an important discussion.
right, absolutely. So
So,
I just, okay, so what I want to say is that I really strongly advocate for distinguishing class 1 and class 2 e-bikes from the other kinds. Now, there is a whole class of bikes that aren't bikes. These are the ones that don't have pedals. They are already required to have a plate and a licensed driver, et cetera. But they don't, but that's not what we're here to talk about. But there is one thing we've got to try to address are those class 3 e-bikes. And I don't know if I should say more, I could talk forever, of course. And, I think I've hit the.
you
high
get 5
points.
minutes of your
20
valuable
20
time.
is plenty. What?
Well,
Excuse me?
and we will have a Q&A, so you'll
Yes.
have an opportunity, I'm
Thank
sure,
you.
to address
Good.
questions.
Could we,
Thanks
if we have a
Thank you.
technical question,
Yeah.
could we ask it now? I just want to know the difference
Go ahead.
between class 2, class 3, and a motorcycle. If you could just
Okay.
briefly explain the
Well,
difference.
Howard, you know that.
No, I've heard,
Well, these are
You
all
do know the
powered.
Fair
difference.
question.
They're all powered.
yes.
Class 3 is not class 1 and 2 is the best way to say they can go faster. Well, there's some limits, and of course, each state differs a little bit.
Uh-huh.
We're talking New York.
It's maybe 25 or 28 miles an hour, and they are typically going a lot faster.
So it's really defined by the speed, the difference between
and
2
the
and 3?
weight, and the
Sorry.
weight also.
Oh, and the weight.
They are much
Okay.
heavier. Yeah.
If you have a
And if
throttle,
it's pedal
Huh?
assist.
if you have a throttle.
The throttle, in class
It's both,
2
yeah,
has a
The
throttle.
I have a class 1 e-bike, it does not have a throttle.
That's
Right.
right. Class 1 doesn't have a throttle. I think 1 and 2 are basically the same except for the throttle. The throttle is it's the speed that you use the throttle going at, not the throttle, in my opinion. So these class 3 bikes, much heavier, faster, and psychologically, as a psychologist, there's something about pedaling that makes a difference. It engages the mind and the brain, whereas if you're just doing this,
Do any of these bikes have speedometers?
excuse me?
Do any of these bikes have?
They all do.
They do.
Oh, yeah, they
I
do. Mine,
I've never
mine-
seen one on a city bike, so
Well,
I'm just curious.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
city bike
maybe
has
the
speedometer.
class 1 doesn't.
Never seen it.
Mine,
Yeah.
mine didn't, I would put it on.
All right, so we're
Just to
lucky to
clarify.
have you, doctor, and I'm
Yeah.
sure there are gonna be a lot of questions
Thank
for you, so, why don't we hold your time
Thank
for
you.
questions in reserve?
Yep.
And Anna, did you have something you wanted to either respond to, or do you now want to, speak?
I can speak, yeah. And I know also William Medina, a delivery worker is also.
Do you want to go there next?
Why don't
Alexis,
you
would you
speak
like
and
to-
I'll find Mr. Medina?
Yeah, well,
Alright,
that's
I-
a good
okay,
use of
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's why.
I'll kind of carry it from on the e-bike piece, just to kind of reinforce what Rob.
And Elizabeth, so
Yes,
sorry.
Elizabeth, sorry.
Adams, yes. I've talked to so many people this week, I can hardly, but it's nice to put names to faces. Go ahead, Elizabeth Adams.
But so just to kind of reinforce what Ross said, class 2 has a throttle, but caps out at 20 miles an hour on the throttle. Class 3 can go above 25, 28 miles an hour on a throttle. So that's the big difference. Class 2 is, that extra, support for 20 miles an hour, is the cap there. So, and the reason I just want to note that is because we at Transportation Alternatives have a campaign called 20 is Plenty. We've advocated for lowering the speeds on our street overall. What Kate talked about in her experience of being hit by a car, and along with, I think, what folks may experience here of, when you're walking out on the street and looking to cross the street, someone zooms by you, the speed is a really critical piece. When we have slower, safer speeds for everyone, we're all kind of operating at at a little bit better speed, with vehicles in particular. If you're hit at 30 miles, if you're crossing the street and hit by a car at 30 miles, the chance that you survive that crash is much, much lower than if you're hit by a car at even 20 miles an hour. It's unfortunate that we have to talk in that way, but that's just the reality of a vehicle is going at a much slower speed. The chance that you are going to survive and be, okay, or is much higher. So we advocate for slow, safe speeds. And that's why we distinguish class 1 and 2 e-bikes. Also, from class 3, some of the much faster, heavier bikes. I'm just gonna backtrack a little bit and kind of zoom out, and at transportation alternatives, we really see the importance of safe streets and safe infrastructure, as well as safe devices. So really looking at what is on the road, what's allowed to be on the road, making sure they're safe and approved, and some of the kind of the e-bikes that I just mentioned, and then also safe rules and accountability. And that's where we really look to measures like holding the apps accountable. On safe streets and safe infrastructure, there is a lot we can be doing to address crashes overall, whether you are crossing the street facing a vehicle or an e-bike or anything. And that is why a large campaign of ours has been to advocate for daylighting, which improves visibility on the streets and public space. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and when I go to cross the street, I often can't. I push the stroller into the crosswalk. I cannot see if a car is going to make a quick turn or someone is coming around the bend. And every single time, that is a very upsetting feeling as a parent. So visibility and safer streets infrastructure is really important to us, and we can design our streets for better visibility, for improved safety for all of us. And that is whether you are a pedestrian or on a bike or in a vehicle. We hear from drivers a lot also who support daylighting, who are saying, I want that visibility too. When I get up to an intersection, I want, if there's a young child crossing, I want to see them with everything I can. So that is a big push of ours. Another infrastructure solution when it comes to e-bikes on sidewalks is loading zones and loading docks off of sidewalks on curb space. There have been a few of these that have been put in that are dedicated bike parking outside of like Chick-fil-A has one. And the change that we have seen from bikes on sidewalks to going off into the curb has been significant. So there is a lot we can do on our streetscape to design the places where we want people to be, right? Sometimes it's somewhat of this situation is a puzzle, a design puzzle, because we have a lot of new modes on our streets. We have a lot of Amazon trucks, we have a lot of delivery happening. And one tool we have that can help this is better designing our streets. So everyone is in exactly the space they should be, that pedestrians have sacred space on the sidewalk, that there is separate space for bikes to be and separate space to cars to be. So people are not kind of hitting into their space. And then the last thing so safe devices is we like the slower speeds for everyone. As I mentioned, 20 is plenty. And there is a council bill carried by Crystal Hudson, which would phase out the fastest, like 28-mile e-bikes, and we support that bill. I don't know if the committee has looked at that, but that we see as a responsible, reasonable measure for what we're seeing on our streets. And then the last I just want to say, and maybe it's a good segue for William, is really holding these delivery apps accountable who are incentivizing so much of what's happening on our streets. Currently, They are setting routes that are saying you have to make 5 deliveries in 30 minutes. If you say no, if you don't take this most direct route, which might be an unsafe route, we're gonna punish you. These companies that are making billions and billions of dollars are trying to set unsafe streets practices on our streets. And I think it is really time that we hold them accountable because they are an employer and our streets are workplaces for many people. And if they are getting away with not being a good employer, not setting good safe streets practices, then I think we're letting them off the hook. And we're talking about, workforce of 70, almost 80,000 people. If we hold the employers accountable for safer practices, that we will all see that difference on our streets. So I'll pause there.
So can we hear from Mr.
Yes.
Medina?
Yeah.
So William Medina, you should be able to speak. You're unmuted and promoted. And thank you for joining us.
Should I add minutes to this?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this important meeting. My name is William Medina. I've been a delivery worker for the past 7 years, working with delivery apps. I'm also a leader with Los Deliveristas Unidos and an organizer with the Worker Justice Project. And I come before you today not just as an advocate, but as a delivery worker representing the reality we face every day. Recently, I was hit by a drunk driver, breaking my left leg. My doctor said it will take 6 months to recover myself without access to workers' compensation. I've been left to recover on my own, unable to work. So this is the reality for thousands of delivery workers. Our injuries and risk are ignored. Studies show that nearly half of delivery workers are injured on the job, and last year about 10 delivery workers died. The perception that we don't care about safety is wrong. We are at the highest risk and safety is our priority. But the apps must also take responsibility. Companies push us to deliver faster and penalize us for being late, often on impossible timelines, forcing us to choose between our safety and our jobs. On top of this, New York PD policies criminalize cyclists for minor traffic violations, while drivers are not held to the same standards. Cyclists who cross a red light, often due to unrealistic delivery demands, receive criminal court summonses. The truth is simple. E-bikes are not the problem. They are essential tools that allow us to work efficiently, earn a living, and support our families. The real problem are unsafe streets, a lack of protected bike lanes, no charging or parking infrastructure, and app companies that pressure workers to rush. E-bikes are the future of the transportation in New York, but the city must invest in a safe infrastructure, expand protected bike lanes, build charging stations and secure parking, provide trade programs for safer UL certified e-bikes, create delivery zones to share streets safely, hold app companies accountable for unsafe practices, and build delivery hubs for charging, rest, and resources. We care deeply about street safety because we are the ones most at risk. Yet app companies avoid responsibility, prioritizing profit over people. We are essential to this city. We deliver food, groceries, and medicine through snowstorms, floods, and emergencies. We must work together to hold app companies accountable and ensure investment in infrastructure, protections, and recognition for the work that keeps New York moving. Thank you for listening and for valuing the voices of the workers who made this city run. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
William.
We've got
Thank you,
hands
Mr.
raised.
Medina.
We have
Um,
two hands raised here.
So we have some hands already, but Alexis, there is a balance of time and you made such an effort to adjust your whole schedule and be here. And I want to make sure that you actually get to say your piece because you've given all your time to your colleagues.
My job is getting people. to
Okay,
speak.
okay.
So I'm gonna give the
Oh.
last few minutes to Anna. If you can get
Oh,
back
and
to the-
Anna, who I called on before you arrived.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I'm
There's a
glad,
little
I'm glad you're
snafu in the
here.
Elevator.
I'm glad you're here.
So I'm the Bronson Uptown organizer. I'm also.
Can you
uh,
say your whole name for
My name is
everybody?
Anna Berlanga.
Thank you.
I'm also a rider of an e-bike. I have a class 1 e-bike. And I'm someone that also shares like concerns about safety. And like a long time ago, I was an employee at TA like 10 years ago, and then I taught in schools, and then I came back. There was a pyramid about who has priority on the streets, and it's pedestrian, then cyclists, then car driver, thinking about who are like the most vulnerable users. So I share concerns about e-bikes. I think my colleague Emily specifically asked me to come because I have a nuanced view about things. What did you guys already share? Like, what part? I think it's,
You have about 2 minutes, but then we're gonna have a Q&A, so you'll have an opportunity to
I think
participate.
that, I think the view is the streets are for everyone and we can make space for everyone. And we just have to think about the right regulations at the right time and the right place. So like one of the things that we're championing is that I think the Los Deliveristas like support on is a point of sale ban on class 3 e-bikes. So one of the things that's really scary is, or really frustrating to me as a user is my bike, I go between 10 and 14 miles an hour. I have arthritis in my knees. It basically helps me start, it helps me go. Otherwise, like my knees are like hurt too much when I'm riding without that little boost. It basically just helps with the starting and stopping. And I have my little speedometer, I go between 10 and 14 miles an hour. Like, I like to go like this, riding upright and riding very peacefully.
14 is fast.
14 is fast.
Yeah.
I do find problems, like the class 3 e-bikes are bikes that can go above 20 miles an hour. They have the throttle, and those two machines are very different machines. Like I have to pedal. So you see when I stop pedaling, you see when I start pedaling, you can see like my intention when I'm going. I can see other people that are riding bikes like me when they're going. The throttle that you can go from 0 to 20 and or 28 or something else. Those are maybe a little problematic. I mean, we advocate for a 20 mile an hour citywide speed limit for every vehicle. That's kind of my,
And we
there's different
we
categories.
touched on that earlier.
yeah.
Both,
Thank you.
both Ross and Elizabeth. So I'm sure people have questions about that.
Yeah.
Alexis, are you comfortable with us moving into the Q&A portion of the program? So what we have is we have 3 committees. Oh, and let me say this also, for you, Anna, because, at the beginning I said this. So we have 3 committees who are here both on Zoom and in this room, virtual and in person. And this is actually not a committee. This is a task force designed to intersect with all the committees of our community board. You're very fortunate to have the chair of the community board. He hustled on over. to
I
So that's Alex, our chair.
Worked out for us,
So
yeah.
this is a public safety task force, and then the 2 committees that are present are transportation, which makes total sense, and then parks and environment because of the issues of the bikes in the parks. And so we're delighted to be collaborating around this issue. And so what we'll do is we tend to take questions first from members of the public, because that's who we serve, and then we come to the committee. But we do have, at least one committee member who, has to leave us a bit early to get to another, conflicted meeting. So I am gonna go to that one committee member first, if he has a question or a comment, and then we'll back into members of the public. First those in the room, and then we go back and forth to line up the people on Zoom, and then we'll have a conversation amongst ourselves, the committee members who may have things to say or questions to ask. How does that sound?
Right.
Good, okay, so Doug, Doug Clyman. If you have anything that you'd like to say or any questions or comments, I know you're a little pressed for time on the back end. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I
would say the same thing to any other committee members who really are pressed for time. Please just let us know and you can go ahead of order. Go ahead, Doug.
yeah, I think I really am looking forward to hearing more conversation, and I assume I would have more questions or comments as the conversation continues. But one point of information, I think someone said that all classes of e-bikes have speedometers. That is definitely not true. There is a limiter on the new, the pedal assist e-bikes, and so inherently it has its own internal speedometer. But one of the issues I think about even people knowing their own speed is that they aren't. The upper class of those vehicles definitely have speedometers like mopeds, et cetera. But and quite frankly, I think it would be great that everybody have speedometers so they know how fast they're going and they can regulate themselves. The question that I had, and I don't know if anyone has this data, I don't know if it's available because it's an ever-changing fact, but I wonder in all 5 boroughs, with the total number of all classes of e-bikes, how many there are and what percentage of class 1, 2, 3, and 4 are there? I don't know if this information is even possible because some of these vehicles are not registered or in any way regulated, but it would be interesting to know because it's obviously been a tremendous proliferation in the last 5 years or so. But it would be really cool if anyone happens to know just how many there are out there and in what which category, and those are the only things I had at the moment. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I can give a response. So we looked at this question as well. We don't actually have the numbers of how many are class 3 e-bikes in New York City, because of, as you mentioned, the get them from or different things. There's a lot of tracking, but a couple of things I'll note. One is the class 3 e-bikes, the one that go like 25 miles an hour. Those are actually only permitted in New York City. They're legalized, they were allowed here because of when the 2018 law went into effect. And they have a longer battery life and some of those things. So the companies, the e-bike companies they make those class 3 e-bikes actually just for New York City. So this bill that we support, carried by Councilmember Hudson that we mentioned, they're doing just a specific market here. So if we were to impact if we were to phase out those class 3, those heaviest, those fastest e-bikes, you're actually impacting, you're kind of really addressing the market situation. And part of why that went into effect from many years ago was it was like an early stage of industry. The class 2 e-bikes now have longer battery lives, are safe, work really well. So we see, and what we've heard from some of the industry companies is that in terms of being able to have like a long battery life, let's say, for example, if you're a delivery worker and you have a long shift, that the class 3 e-bikes are not the only ones anymore that are able to do that, and the class 2 go at a safer, slower speed. So I don't have the answer to your question, but it is one that we're curious about, and we do see the bulk are class 1 and 2, and the ones that I think are causing more of the feeling of anxiety and chaos are the fastest kind of fringe ones.
That's helpful. Thank you.
May I add to
Alexa,
that?
go
So
ahead,
I
Anna.
forgot to say in my spiel that one night like in summer, I was hit by an e-bike. So I was riding my bike up on Willis Avenue, which is a 2-way protected bike lane. And it was probably a class 3. The guy stayed on scene, but I was like out of it. So those class 3s are also the heavier e-bikes. So we know from physics that it's speed times
Yes.
weight. That's what makes the cars so dangerous. But that's what also makes the class 3 bikes, mopeds, motorcycles also very dangerous because they can go very fast and they can go, and they are very heavy. So like, I was also by my colleague asked to come here because of that nuance, like I was hit, I did have a long recovery time, it did impact me, so like, I'm not just seeing things from one side.
How many of the bikes were sitting?
Jamie, I'm gonna go soon and I thank you. One thing that I didn't mention that I realized that I wanted to say is that I absolutely so stipulate that heavy vehicles are the most dangerous. That is a fact, that is science, that is those physics. But it doesn't mean that if you get knocked over and the own weight of your body, your head in particular, hits the pavement, it doesn't mean you can't have a catastrophic accident. So, or injury. So I'm not in any way minimizing the truth and the exponentially different danger of a heavy vehicle. That is true, but it doesn't mean that, just because an AR-15 is a weapon of mass destruction, it doesn't mean that a knife or a handgun can also, be very dangerous. So I think we can walk and chew gum. We really need to be very careful and safe about things, but I do stipulate that heavy vehicles are absolutely the most dangerous, no doubt about it.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Unless some other member of our 3 committees or 2 committees and task force urgently needs to leave, we'll turn now to the members of the public, starting with those here in the room who might have a question don't feel you must run up to the front, because we'll come to you later if something occurs to you later. But if you have something, we'll come to you now. I am going to ask people, because this is a mistake I made in the past, I'm not gonna make it again, to try to limit yourself to the 2-minute time when you make your comment or ask your question. And that way we can keep everyone will get in, because last time some people were not able to speak because we front loaded the people who spoke earlier.
And we have a lot of folks.
Yes, sir.
What is the specific issue that you're bringing?
Today, at
Is it
this,
just fact finding on this issue, or is there
yeah, we're pretty much fact finding tonight, and we did that last month, and then next month, we're going to perhaps move forward either with a resolution or maybe a little more fact finding. And that's why we have 3 committees here. I don't know if you heard us say at the beginning, we have Parks and Environment, and we have Transportation, 2 committees, and we're a small task force that intersects with all the committees. So it's mostly a fact finding mission. And this is a group of people who brought a lot of facts, so we're gonna dig in. Rich,
My name
you
is,
have to come to the owl,
Oh.
as you must know by now.
yes. Okay, my name is Ira Gershenhorn.
Yes.
I actually was hit by a car. I learned 2 things, 3 things, I don't know. I wasn't hit hard, luckily. The guy coming behind me said, "Oh, I was turning left too." And I was in his way. So he hit me, okay. Because I was coming from another community board meeting and I had my phone in my backpack, I didn't take pictures of his car and he took off before I got any information from him. So I found out that if you don't go to the hospital, the police don't think you're injured. I had to find out from attorney, I broke my tooth. That's a bone, that counts as a serious injury. And I also found out that don't get hit on a night when some guy commits a mass murder or somewhere. I got hit on December 4th, the same day that guy got hit, killed in Midtown.
with Mangione?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, so my interest the next day was going out to subpoena cameras and no way, not gonna happen. Also, if you break a tooth, there's no coverage. I would be better off if I hurt myself.
Yeah.
I would have been in the hospital, would have fixed me up and let me go, but no. So I'm at these community meetings where people are complaining about their tires being knocked off their cars and causing $400, $6,000 for a front tooth. Yeah, talk about that. So anyway, I also have an e-bike. I don't use it. The night I was hit, I was not using the e-bike. I use the e-bike on cases where I can carry compost, coffee grinds.
Mr.
and
Gershon,
take
I'm
mud-
sorry to interrupt you. Can move
Okay,
it along.
I can go to a food fridge and drop off stuff. Also, the e-bike allows me, it's a class 1, and I never go 19 miles an hour. That's like, oh my God. I'm more like 10-mile-an-hour person. Regular bikes pass me, but it allows me to accelerate from a light and go uphill.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira.
Yeah.
Made many good points
And your
there.
teeth
Thank
look
you.
great.
Yeah.
Your teeth
Oh, they
look
ship for
great.
$6,000.
Definitely.
They replaced it.
Okay, let's go to someone.
Glad you didn't go for
Okay,
the 4,000.
Elizabeth Chow, I'm going to promote you.
No, hit allow to talk.
I'll go allowed to talk.
Elizabeth, I remember that you joined us at the last meeting, so I
did.
am curious
Thank you.
to hear your comment this time, and I think we all are. Thank you for joining us again.
My pleasure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Great. First of all, I want to say that, I agree with many of the things that have been said tonight. I applaud Families for Safe Streets for wanting to make our streets safer from traffic violence of all kinds. I agree that e-bikes have created a lot of anxiety and chaos in our streets, and I agree that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So although I am all for making our streets safer and making less traffic violence, and I feel very much for the people who've spoken tonight, and I'm all for the introduction of electric motor vehicles, what I'm very opposed to is reckless driving of these motor vehicles. And I am among the vast majority of New Yorkers who want to see all electric motor vehicles registered and licensed with visible license plates to create accountability for reckless driving. And relatedly, I also believe that motor vehicles of any kind should be banned from our parks, which are meant for recreation, not transportation. So I think I might have mentioned this the last time, but I am very much in favor of Priscilla's law, which I don't think is contra in any way to what Transportation Alternatives or Families for Safe Streets are trying to accomplish. We all want safer streets, but danger happens and accidents happen and injuries happen when you have speed and weight and reckless driving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. So I'm going to ask one of,
There's someone here.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't.
oh, do you want to respond directly to what Elizabeth said?
No.
You would like to go
I have
next?
my own comment, but if I don't want to skip procedure, I also came a little bit late, so I don't know the order.
Well, do you want to speak specifically to parks or Priscilla's law? Because I want to ask a question about what Elizabeth said.
Go ask your question first.
Okay, good.
Ask your
Thank
question
you.
first.
Thank you. I remember you were here also last time or in another meeting.
January, the
Yes,
January meeting.
yes, excellent. Thank you. So I'd love to have one of you respond to both of those questions because they came up in our last meeting. And it's part of what I'm sure we'll discuss going forward, both here and at transportation and at parks. The question of e-bikes in the parks. You mentioned the pressure that some deliveristas feel to go through the park, even when perhaps they don't want to go through the park. And then there are people who do want to ride their e-bikes in the park because it's enjoyable, perhaps. So there's that question. And then there's the separate issue of Priscilla's law and whether it dovetails with your mission and or policy agenda. So I don't know which one you want to take first.
I'll take Priscilla's on, and I don't know if delivery, William wants to speak to
Okay,
the.
great.
So when it comes to licensing and registering e-bikes, we have looked into it, and I appreciate Elizabeth's point around about safety first and looking at what we.
Could you just define, I don't know if everyone in the room knows what Priscilla's law is.
Fair point. Thank you.
That's why I asked the question about class 2 and class 3, by
That's
the
a
way.
fair point, Howard. Yes,
So,
thank you.
it is a proposed bill, that would require the licensing and registration of all e-bikes. So you would have to go to the DMV, you would have to get a license, you would have to register, right? And there are a lot of document process that go along with that. And the intention is, to kind of know what's going on and who has these. We have looked into this, and again, we prioritize safety on our streets. We were saying, how do we design safer streets? How do we make it possible for pedestrians to walk around safely? We have looked at it, and everywhere that this legislation has been done, it has simply not worked. Bike licensing, so I'll speak a little bit. So bike licensing has been proposed in Houston, in LA, in Toronto. Toronto actually did an extensive study when they did licensing and registration of bikes.
Bikes or
And they-
e-bikes?
All. So, and I'll.
Okay,
if
but
you
we're
could
talking
give-
about e-bikes.
I know, if you give me just 1 second to just. to
But we
kind of
shouldn't
finish.
really be lumping in bikes with this.
Right, but the thing about e-bikes is they look like bikes, they are bikes. So when you require licensing of e-bikes, you're requiring licensing of bikes because.
But that's not what Priscilla's law is. So I think for the
Okay.
instructor for this
Okay.
conversation to talk about what you see as potential issues.
Should we maybe not interrupt?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
hold on 1 second. I'm gonna take control of this for just a moment.
please.
Dan, let's let her finish and then we can ask our question and double
But I'm just
back.
trying to facilitate a really focused conversation. because,
I think
we're
that's-
dealing with the pros and cons of a call to regulate e-bikes, right? So by drawing in and lumping in bicycles into the conversation, we are some way clouding the issue, not bringing
It is
clarity
one of the
to it.
complicating factors.
But it
So-
seems like it makes a good analogy, right?
So-
You're saying like, if you're registering the same kind of vehicle, what were the effects of this?
So Elizabeth, would you finish your point and then would you address the concern that it's overbroad? And would you once again mention the 4 jurisdictions that you say tried this? But keep in mind Dan's point that perhaps these are not apt analogies and address that if you would. And then Dan, if you have a follow-up, you can ask.
Well,
So there have been many localities. I listed a few as examples. It is not an exhaustive list, but everywhere that has,
And you mentioned Toronto.
Toronto, Houston, LA. Toronto did a study examining after they put in effect licensing and registration. And what they found is it didn't work in actually, the reason that they put it in place is because they were saying, we need to have something where we can stop bicyclists who are breaking the rules, right? Where we can hold them accountable and say, oh, we need to be able to see that they're breaking the rule and we can stop them and hold them accountable. What they found is it didn't lead to people following the rules more. It didn't, it was a bureaucratic nightmare. It cost a lot of money. And they had really big issues around age verification, and it actually led to young people getting arrested and being caught up in the carceral system. And so they repealed it after doing an extensive study saying, actually, all of our intended goals were not accomplished. But what they did and what they found instead was saying, well, actually, police officers, if we focus on enforcement of the laws and when they stop someone who has violated a rule and ask for their own ID, that actually works better because they can tag the violation to their identification, right? So you already have an identification for that stated goal that they're trying to achieve of saying, when someone breaks a rule, we need to hold them accountable. And so they saw more success actually by cops following people's own identification rather than bikes. And the other effect that it had was a chilling effect of people then saying, I just want to ride a bike. I'm not going to get a license. I'm not going to go to the DMV. I'm not going to register it. That is a big concern of ours here in New York City. New York City is a big bike city. We have the opportunity to have more biking on our streets in a way that is safe, that is responsible, but that is, a lovely experience for people.
I love bikes.
And our concern is that this would create a real chilling effect by saying you have to go to the DMV to license your bike if it's, and I hear your point about e-bikes versus.
Right, but once again,
non-e-bike.
was the Toronto
What about?
program?
Whoa, everybody. One
Is the
at a
Toronto
time.
program about bicycles broadly or about e-bikes? Because what you're saying is bicycles.
Yes.
So it's not an apples to
it
apples
was
comparison
about-
to our conversation about Priscilla's
Yeah.
law.
The comparison I think that is important is the stated goal was the same of saying people are going fast and maybe running a red light or these
That is not
violations.
the focus of our conversation.
So I think I think she's making the point that it was not precisely the same fact pattern, but you believe that it was a good exemplar or analogous. and a helpful study, though not exactly the same. And you're saying, Dan, that it is not helpful because the
It's not
classes are
relevant.
different.
It's not relevant.
Okay,
We're
well,
talking
that's
about
fair.
a specific class of vehicle that
Right.
is closer to a
We'll go
car
around. We'll
than
go
it is to a bicycle.
Okay,
I
okay, we'll
will,
go
I will
around.
just say, so I think for us, what we hear from people a lot is speed. And people
Speed.
zooming down on the streets and wanting to address that, which we take very seriously, right? The zooming down on the street, if that is the issue you're speaking to.
That's not the
versus-
issue we're speaking about. We're
Okay.
speaking about the specific danger
Okay.
that a rise of e-bikes presents.
Because
they
can go fast,
What?
because they can go fast.
They're heavier.
And they're-
Also,
not just
can,
heavy,
because they're heavier.
I mean,
They're heavier.
tell us the difference between
Why
an
don't we
e-bike
move
and a
on?
bike.
Okay.
So I
You
was
think
not
it's-
quite just to kind of finish the point, I think when we looked at models that have worked, that are successful, that is what led us to supporting the bill around saying,
So we don't have
let's
licensing.
let's phase out these fastest, heaviest devices that are raising concerns around speed and unsafe streets.
Yeah.
So that, when we looked at all the data, we said, what we came to was, let's actually address point of sale, let's get the fastest, heaviest
Okay, they're
devices
having
off
a
the street
conversation between.
and not follow what other localities across the country and outside of the country have shown us has not been effective. That is the data that we are following. We are not, like, we're not looking at it from a different perspective than that. But again.
But it's very unpersuasive
Okay,
if you're not doing an apples to
Okay,
apples comparison.
Dan, I want to stop this only because I want
Okay.
members of the public to have their opportunity. We're gonna come back. But the members of the public who I promised would get to speak before all of us have not yet gotten to speak, one of whom I can see right over here. So why don't you come if you still have a desire to speak?
Sure.
You might just want to leave.
Okay,
Um,
I'll put this on the timer.
And come and ask your question. It might be relevant to this, actually, might enlighten us. And then we also have many people online who have raised their hands. So I
And
just
you
want to make
also
sure we
two
aren't
Community
neglecting.
members who had three that who want to speak.
Yes, yes. So I want to make sure all of you get to speak, and then we can come back to our discussion of these finer points. Okay. Remind us and me of your name from January.
Hi, I'm Austin. I live on 65th Street. I was hit by an e-bike
Yes.
4 years ago.
Yes.
Actually to the point, there's that painted intersection on Amsterdam. There was a car parked there and the light was changing and the e-bike didn't see me and couldn't brake too late. I was lucky. I just needed crutches, but obviously there are people here that are going to testify that had far worse injuries. And I was actually, you know what, I'll change what I'll say because I will actually respond to, e-bike licensing because there is a jurisdiction that you missed that I visited last year. It's Amsterdam. And Amsterdam put in a law, they separate their e-bikes into two different classes. So there's those that are 15 miles an hour and below, and there are those that are 15 miles an hour and above. There is a manufacturing difference too, but I'm not gonna get into that. And they treat any e-bike that can go over 15 miles an hour as a moped, and any e-bike below that as a bicycle. So they have a different class. And I think one of the things there, I was a little bit surprised to learn that they licensed that and their bike union, they have a literal bicycle union, was the one behind that. But what they explain is they did everything. What you see in Amsterdam is the work of 50+ years of infrastructure planning, policy advocacy. They have the best bike lanes in the world. They have the best infrastructure in the world, and they have drivers that are so cognizant of bikers that if you have an unprotected lane and they make repairs to the street, they remove the unprotected lane because they prove, oh, they can coexist. And what they made clear was that that infrastructure is foundational to all safety. Daylighting is coded in, bike lanes are coded in. And when you get to that point, it's like, okay, yeah, those big speed pedelecs or fat bikes as they call them, they are the problem. And obviously we can't wait 50 years for improvements to get to that point. But I think the lesson that you get from Amsterdam specifically is that you have to get that infrastructure in, and you also have to make it hard to break the law in the first place. There's gonna be no reason to ride on the sidewalk if there's no bike parking on the sidewalk. There's gonna be no reason to speed if you have, say, the green wave on 3rd Avenue. There's gonna be no reason to use the park for transportation if you have a bike lane off, if you can go up down on Madison or downtown on Columbus or on Central Park North or Central Park South.
You can.
Yeah, that's the whole point. And I learned over the summer, just by accident, because I would use the Greenway with a city bike to go to Yankee Stadium, because I'm that crazy. And then by accident, I was sent down the transverse onto 3rd Avenue, and I realized, wait, 3rd Avenue was actually faster. and I stopped using this park. You need to get people to use those other streets, and that comes with infrastructure.
So your focus for all of us, Community Board 7 and citywide, would be focus on the fix, the infrastructure
Mhm.
fix, less than what we're talking about, right?
I think you have to walk in, like the same thing. I think the
Walk
thing I
and
learned
chew
from,
gum.
walk and chew gum. When I learned from Amsterdam, the same time they were advocating for that licensing bill, they got a citywide, basically a citywide Sammy's Law in place at the same time.
Mhm.
If you know Amsterdam, you know that Amsterdam Nord is wildly disconnected, and it's the only place you really can't get to them. But they started the process of building a bike bridge
Mhm.
at the same time.
Mhm.
So you can do more than one thing at a time. With regards to the law specifically, I think that, you know, what works for City Bike doesn't work for Deliveristas. What works for Deliveristas doesn't work for personal e-bikes.
Mhm.
Because for Deliveristas, you have the app. You need to get those apps, because I think a lot about the McDonald's hot coffee case. They didn't change their rules because of goodwill. They changed their rules because someone sued them.
Mhm.
And they realized, oh, if I can be held liable, if the people can point to me as being responsible, then that's gonna lose me money. So I need to bring my profits in just a little bit so I'm not held liable. And then for City Bike, you have 15, 20 people using the bike a day. A licensing can only get so far, and you're going to need so much more operational capacity for them to be able to take those complaints, to take that ticketing, unless you're going to give the NYPD another $1.5 billion to coordinate with City Bike.
Yeah.
So if you want like a Priscilla's Law functionally to work for City Bike, you need to give them a lot of public money. And we have all these conversations around public money for City Bike, for expanding the program, for making it more affordable, which is another thing. People are driven by cost. I know I will math out like, oh, the light is, oh, I have 10 seconds for the light change. Let me unduct my bike now so I can make that light and make that chain of lights, because time counts, and that's each minute is 27 cents now. So like make it more affordable to go slower, give City Bike the operational capacity to handle enforcement. Then you can get
Good idea.
commercial licensing, City Bike licensing, whatever you want, but infrastructure is the foundation, but you have to do everything.
Thank you for all of that.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very, very good. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
Next person is Wendy Peace. I'm promoting Wendy Peace,
Allowed to talk.
and you need to unmute yourself, Wendy Peace.
I think she's free to
unmuted.
speak. Go ahead, Wendy.
Wendy, your
Hello?
hand- Yeah, hi.
Yep, I don't, oh, sorry, I can't get my photo.
We
to
can
work.
hear you.
Anyway, okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm outside if it's windy. 2 points I'd like to make. One is that class 1 e-bikes are still extremely heavy. I was hit by one and I got severe injuries. I was on my little grandma bike with my little basket in the front, going the right way on the bike lane, and the City Bike e-bike was going the wrong way. And it did a lot of damage. Those class 1s are very heavy. I appreciate the lady with arthritis. I also have arthritis in my knees, so I know how painful that is. But those class 1s do not behave like regular bikes. I can't hear them when I'm on my bike. I can't hear them when I'm a pedestrian. And they don't stop and start the same as a regular bike. So I'd like to make that very clear that they're also dangerous. Although I appreciate, you know what, if baby steps can happen with class 3 first, I'm all for it, but I would like class 1 and 2 also included. In terms of the Toronto study, I feel my fellow bike person, I guess, is a little misinformed. The last real study was in 1992. They revisited again in 2016 and decided that it wasn't feasible, and it was only for regular bikes. There were no e-bikes even available at that point. As of November 25th, the City Council passed a motion that they would do an in-depth study about e-bikes and registration and licensing. So while that is being done, because it's going to take a little while, they are looking at enforcement and education, but really enforcement to try and get people to stop hurting other people. So I don't know where she got her information from, but I can tell you that I'm speaking the truth, and you can look it up online, and you can go to the City Council of Toronto's website. I'm actually from Toronto and was part of that 1992. Anyway, so the other thing I'd like to say is City Bike. Well, I appreciate what the fellow person just said now about them and everything. And to his point, because they are so expensive, and that contract is through the city, so the city had some sway with that.
Ms.
They
Peace,
are-
I'm so
yes.
sorry, we have to wrap it up a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming again, Wendy. We'll see you next time, I hope.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public in this room who want to speak? Oh, yes, please.
Right here. Oh.
You have to come up.
Hold on, William, we'll come right back to you in just a moment. You do have to come toward the table because the people online won't be able to.
Okay, well, just very briefly, I just want to second what Austin said. Thank you for expressing that, the sort of dual track approach of seeing the long game here as infrastructure, but in the meantime, there's plenty of great work that's going on. I have a question for our guest experts around the question of route regulation, which sounded really interesting, or anyone else who has any expertise on this, where the apps may be required to route drivers out of particular areas or for safety reasons. Has that been successful anywhere? Is there a safety effect that's been studied robustly? Or are we, which is fine too, just saying, hey, there's an opportunity to think about it further? Thank you.
And I did see William also wanted to speak. Mr. Medina, you wanted to come back into the conversation.
Yes, yes, thank you so much.
Go right
Thank you so
ahead.
much. Thank you so much for all your comments. So I just want to say that the problem is that we can register all the bicycle, but we still feel that accidents will continue happen without a proper education and structural changes in the city that benefit pedestrians and delivery workers so we can do our job safely. For example, in my case, I was hit by a drunk driver. Even though he had a car, we usually assume driver have insurance, but the reality was that he didn't. Now I'm left unprotected. One side, the delivery app says we are considered independent contractors. So on the other side, I cannot receive compensation because the driver also had no insurance. We can spend time talking about bicycle speed, weight, or recklessness, which, to be honest, sometimes come from pedestrians and sometimes from delivery riders as well. But the reality is that we have a poor structural design in the city that does not allow us to work to be 100% safe. If the solution is simply to punish people who are working honestly in this city and providing the service that, let's be honest, the community needs, that we are missing the bigger picture. If it's a person who lives alone, needs medicine, who brings the medicine to him, a delivery worker. If punishment alone were the solution, then crime will not exist in New York City. There are already laws, penalty, and prison, yet we can clearly see that in many cases has not solved to the problem. Crime still exists despite punishment. That we need to talk about this opportunity and how we can mitigate risk. Why is this specific community being ignored instead of being included in solutions? Rather than only imposing penalties, we should be proposing programs that help us work in a more responsible and safe way. We need to focus on addressing the root of the problem. In the end, it affects everyone in our community. That's why the city agencies and partner organizations should work together with the community and delivery workforce to create safer streets, better infrastructure, and systems that truly protect all of us.
I'm voting for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Melinas.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay.
Thank you again for being with us, and we hope you'll continue to work with us.
Should I come,
Anyone else in the
Mary?
room? Would you like to come back and say
No, I
one
just
more?
wondered if there was a
I
response.
can respond a little bit to the.
Can we make it quickly though? I'm sorry, because
We
we've
have a
got
lot of people
we've
online
got
who
8 more
want to
people who
speak.
want to speak.
Ira, you spoke.
Very quickly, I can say if the app companies were required to set safe routes,
You did make
I
that
think
point.
we would see that as a much safer response. Instead, the way sometimes they set routes in the app for workers is like, take this shortcut or cut across that street, right? All of that is,
Yes.
but that could be.
Mary Bacchus, I'm going to promote you. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can, Mary, go ahead.
Okay.
minute.
No matter whether a person is hit by a car or hit by an e-bike, it is still a grievous issue. Since cars and trucks are registered and licensed, then e-vehicles should be registered and licensed. Then we will have some kind of accountability. If, as Mr. Medina says, e-vehicles are the future of transportation, then Priscilla's Law should be passed. And as an aside, I have a family member who works DoorDash. I just want to, who works DoorDash, and he does it in a car.
Mary, hold on one second. If
Yeah.
you're not speaking, please mute yourselves because you're moving into the conversation. Yeah, but I don't know what it is.
Okay, so,
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Oh. Hang on.
It wasn't me.
okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, pick up
Okay.
with
Okay,
your
I
last-
have a family member who works DoorDash and he does it in a car. Now, he has to be licensed and registered to do that. I don't understand why we can't have e-vehicles licensed and registered. The second point I'd like to make is that people with disabilities, the elderly, and young children have difficulty crossing the streets in the parks. And therefore, all motorized vehicles, be they cars or e-vehicles, should be banned from the parks. The parks are our sanctuary. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Mary,
You're welcome.
and for keeping it tight.
That was with 1 minute to go. Thank you. Okay, next is,
Okay, I think we're staying online.
okay, so, here we go is Janet Schroeder. I'm going to
Janet?
promote you. Okay.
Go ahead, Janet, 2 minutes.
Hi, so I don't know if I'm mute, I know I'm not, I don't know if you can see me, but that's okay. I'm very sad to hear about people being hit or injured or killed by cars. And Kate, I'm so glad you're here to tell your story. Cars are dangerous. Thank goodness that they require license and registration and therefore accountability, because can you imagine how much worse it would be if they weren't and they could flee the scene of 95% of the crashes with no way to find the driver, as e-vehicles do? Of our 119 victims in EFSA, only 6 riders stayed at the scene of these very serious crashes, and there was no way to identify them. So we missed that point in all this, how important it is to have the ability to identify people that leave people unconscious on the ground. E-vehicles kill too. They've killed many pedestrians. Cabrinda Safnan in Queens, Lisa Baines on the Upper West Side, Priscilla Loke in Chinatown, Louis Cruz in Brooklyn, Jing Fan on the Upper West Side. It goes on and on and on. Teresa Valente was recently killed by a class 3 coming, off that bus. The other ones are all mixes, a lot of class 1 and 2. They kill too. But cars do kill more, just like heart disease kills more women than breast cancer. But we still find a cure. Try for breast cancer. It's not either or. We must pass Priscilla's Law. Enough is enough 4 years later. I respect the neurosurgeon speaking about working and caring for crash victims. The law of physics works when you compare cars to two-wheelers, but it's definitely in place when you compare e-bikes to bicycles. They are not bicycles, and they should have visible plates to identify them. There's a bike lobby resolution by TA right now that states that the NYPD has 37 e-vehicle accidents in 2024. I can't even speak about how off that is. Bellevue Hospital alone, Dr. Paff recently was quoted saying that they have one a day. They had 220 between January 2023 and mid 2024. That's 1 ER out of 54. So please, please stop quoting these crash statistics when NYPD reports almost none. Like 8 of our 119 have a police report. So please keep that in mind, people. Please keep that in mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Schroeder.
Okay, can I just finish my last couple sentences?
No,
The
you
last,
can't.
Janet, you can't because we are not going to be able to get to
Okay.
everyone.
that's fine. The last point was pretty important.
Thank you for coming. You can
Thank
send it in though. and we
Definitely
encourage-
put it in the chat.
Yeah.
We don't have a chat.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can send your comments to me because I know you have
Do we
my
have like the
email.
Q&A thing or
No,
no?
I removed the Q.
Okay, so I'm gonna say
I
now
know.
that there is no way we will get to everyone who is wanting to speak. I'm just gonna say
Do you want to
now.
do it 1 minute each or?
Even if we go to
Oh,
1
1
minute
minute. We've
each.
I don't know how
got
many
12,
we
we've
do.
got
Got
15.
12 more plus everybody in this room.
Yeah.
Howard, are you volunteering to stay till midnight?
Definitely
Cause I'll
not.
stay with you.
Okay,
I know you would.
Okay, so we're going to, and
Ron Wisniewski, Bonnie Gerard, Sandy Rayborn.
let's hear from Sandy. We heard Ron and
Okay.
Bonnie last time.
Okay,
We're
let's-
trying to get to you, I promise. Oh, and Quentin,
Okay.
who's with Senator, let's
Let's
go
go.
to.
Quentin Halbrenner?
Quentin
Okay.
is with
Everybody.
Senator Bottcher's
Okay.
office.
Can I make a suggestion?
Okay.
If we can ask people to focus on making points that have not already been made.
Yes,
rather than
yes, they
repeating
know that.
previously made points,
Yes,
that would be
yes.
helpful.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to promote, okay, so Quentin Heilbronner, you're next.
Go ahead, Q.
Hey, everybody, let me see if this is working, if this is going through. You all seeing me?
Yes, yes.
Hearing, not seeing.
It's
Oh,
okay.
well,
We don't
I
have
mean,
video.
lucky you guys, but let me see if I can get my camera on. Why is this?
No, it's okay.
Okay, just-
Don't worry about it. You've
Sorry
only
about
got a
that.
minute
Just speak.
54.
All right, I'll be quick. You don't need to see me. I look really generic. It's sort of a calling card, so you'll see me and forget anyway. But hey, didn't want to introduce myself. Not gonna obviously join the fray. We've got lots of folks talking about it, but I did want to say hello. I'm the new Community Board 7 liaison from Senator Bottcher's office. I wish I were there in person. I didn't know I could have made it. But did want to jump in. I have to leave in about 10 minutes, but did want to let you know, just paying attention to everything. Oh, sorry?
Okay.
You didn't know how much fun you'd be missing, Quentin.
Honestly, I'm like, but in all seriousness, do just really want to appreciate everybody for talking and letting y'all know. If you want to let our office know, please email bottcher@nysenate.gov. We read them all. We respond to every single one, as long as you're, not making something up. And yeah, just appreciate it. I'll be here till 8 as well. So
Thank you. Thank you, Quentin.
Thank you guys.
And thank you for coming.
Okay, the next, you want to do Jennifer Waltz? Jennifer Waltz, I'm going to promote you. Allowed to talk. Here we go. Jennifer Waltz?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm Jennifer Walls. I'm a longtime resident of the Upper West Side, a couple of decades. I'm in the Manhattan Valley area. And no one here has spoken about accessibility for people with vision problems in terms of vision impaired and blind pedestrians. I was completely ignorant to this myself, so I don't even necessarily blame people. But now that I am vision impaired myself, I understand the way that we have to cross the street at intersections is we rely on traffic patterns. And that's just what we're trained. It's standard orientation and mobility training for blind and vision impaired people is you follow the traffic patterns. So something that is really important is that when any vehicle runs a red light, it is extremely confusing. And I have actually erroneously crossed Broadway, which is, high-speed traffic, when an e-bike on a side street ran through a red light. So I thought I had the direction, I thought I had my light to cross, but I actually was crossing on the red. So there was no way I could have known that. And so because of the issue right now with any vehicle, but typically it's e-bikes at this time that are running through red lights, it puts me at increased risk of being hit by a car, another e-bike. Because of this, I have to rely on Access-a-Ride more, and that just puts more cars on the street. And it means that I'm more sedentary. And so it's just something that really needs to be thought about. It's not just long-term, great. I'm all for lots of these ideas, but short-term, we need the e-bikes and every vehicle out there to be stopping at traffic lights and following traffic rules. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Ms. Waltz.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, next, we have time for like 3 more people.
Yeah, we have time for 3 more, and then I'm going to ask everyone else to send me your comments, which I will share with all of the committee members.
Okay, Susan Simon?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello.
Okay. While I appreciate the concerns of the delivery person who spoke eloquently, and safety is an issue, There are many people who work in taxis, Ubers, and trucks, and they are all licensed and do not suffer because of their licensing, registration, and insurance. Each week, people are injured by e-bikes because not all riders are responsible riders. Over 20% of Upper West Siders are seniors, and an injury from a reckless e-bike is not just life-altering, but can be fatal. And this is a situation that has been going on for at least 3 years that we really know about, and we really know that something like Priscilla's Law is absolutely, in my opinion, a necessity, because we cannot control the behavior of all those riding. And it is that behavior that we need to be responsible for and needs to be held accountable. And I am very much in favor of Priscilla's Law. I don't think any real safety actions can be taken without regulating e-bike riders. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more comments, and then we're going to come to the table, as I promised.
Okay, we have Don Reed and Rita Rosenkrantz. So Don Reed, I'm going to unmute you, and here we go. Don Reed. Don, you are muted. You have to unmute yourself. Mr. Reed.
Thank you. I'm a cyclist and I'm also very active in the senior centers. As a cyclist, to try to summarize everything I've heard, there's 2 issues here. One is speeding, which is a big problem with safety. Another one is accountability, which is a big problem if someone, a biker, a rider, hits a pedestrian and zip goes by. So my solution is pretty simple. I'm going to be short. 1, we put governors or limiters on e-bikes to say 15 miles an hour for class 1 and 2. The class 3, they're mopeds. They should be out in the street, not in the bike lanes. And in terms of accountability, yes, we need to have licensing for e-bikes. So if and when they do strike a pedestrian, that they can be traced, not only by the app companies who've got, my understanding is app companies have GPS on all these bikes that are working for them. So there's really 2 ways, cameras and them. But clearly, licensing is extremely important, because you got a license, you can be caught, and that affects behavior, limits your speeding. The other thing is, on the senior centers, and you all know this, seniors are frightened. They're uneasy. The senior center I'm active in is on 54th and Lex. Some of them are afraid to cross streets, particularly on 57th Street. So we really got to come to grips with the aspect of speeding and safety and accountability.
Thank you so much.
We need it for the public.
We have to cut you off, sir.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
thank
Reed.
you.
All right,
Okay,
thank you. Thank you very much.
Susan, you're going to get the last word for the public. Susan Simon, if you're still with us.
Okay.
I just spoke.
Oh, thank you, Susan. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
And my notes are good. I have exactly what you said right down on my page, so don't think I missed it.
Okay, the after Mr. Reed was Rita
Yes, Rita, I'm sorry.
Rita Rosenkrantz, you're on.
How could I forget that name? Oh.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity of connecting with you. I'm an unlikely candidate for activism because I'm a responsible citizen and basically look before I cross, except that last August 18th, I was hit from behind by an e-bike in Riverside Park, the promenade on 88th Street. He stopped along with his two buddies. My guess is they were riding parallel because he couldn't swerve to miss me, and but gave me false information, so I could not directly follow up with him. There turns out to be no cameras at that location in that general area, so there was no way to follow up that way. And so I went to Lyft, which, because I had the coordinates, 3 e-bikes at 88th and Riverside at 6 p.m. or 6:15, staying there for about 15 minutes. I thought that would be enough sort of breadcrumbs to determine who were the likely suspects for that injury. And I got nowhere. So my frustration is that Lyft was unaccountable. They were the end stop for me. And after that, I just concentrated on my healing. But it was, in fact, insult to injury that there was no way to determine the culprit for my injury. And again, 3 bikes driving in parallel was their first mistake. This was a very fluky accident, but one that I'm grateful I've survived, albeit with a titanium plate in my arm and 9 screws. So that's my story, and that's my frustration. Lyft had no accountability, and that was the end stop for me.
Thank you, Ms. Rosencrantz.
Thank you very much, Rita. And to the members of the public who were not able to speak tonight, if you'll write into the CB7 office, they'll give you my personal email. And you can, yes, and you can write to me, and then I will share whatever comments you have with all the members of the Parks and Environment Committee, as well as the Transportation Committee, the co-chairs, and they'll disseminate your comments and questions, and we can also share them with our guests who are here tonight. I did promise our members that they will have an opportunity to ask follow-up questions if your endurance is still, if you're still going strong. So let's have a respectful discussion now, and we'll go around. And I think Sophia did have her hand up first, so if you're okay with clockwise, we'll go clockwise. Unless somebody has a point of information or a direct follow-on to what Sophia is about to say. And I know we're tight on time, so we'll just be mindful of that. I do think the questions and comments that came were largely not redundant. I think they were helpful and in different areas, and maybe now we can just flush it out a bit. So Sophia, take it away.
Do you want me to time it?
Well, I trust us to try and stay within the 2 minutes, so
Yeah,
you can time it, but
I'll be quick.
you might introduce yourself for people who don't know who you are.
Sophia Vala, I'm co-chair of the Transportation Committee with Ken. I had 2 kind of clarifying questions. To my understanding, the New York City Department of Transportation did do a study on licensing and insurance, and they concluded that it would be really expensive and ineffective. Unfortunately, that study isn't public and you can only read the summary, but I was wondering if you can speak a bit more about those findings. I know you had case studies, but this is like local, so I was wondering if you know anything more about that study. The other question was about e-motos. I know, and this is actually from an article that you shared with me, that they're like a much higher class than e-bikes, and people often confuse them with e-bikes. And like, I was in the park this weekend on an e-bike, on a city bike, but I honestly was pretty scared riding around the e-motos, but it looks like a motorcycle, but they're pedaling, but it's clearly not an e-bike. So if you could just talk, and that a lot of them are actually marketed as e-bikes, which is also a challenge. So if you could just speak a little bit about that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So just on the first point, we haven't seen a public DOT study, but what the information that we've heard and which tracks kind of with multiple places is it's very costly and adds a lot of bureaucratic processes to try to set up a licensing system. And that it doesn't hit the goal, right, of like stopping people or holding them accountable. It get there. And cops right now have the ability to stop people, and I think that's where we're looking to say, you know, if someone is running a red light, you can stop them now, and it is illegal, and you can give them a ticket. So we should really, you know, the laws are there, let's enforce them, and then look at kind of what we see really works, which is I'll just say that the infrastructure solution of also like green wave timing, where if streets are all, the lights are all timed for 15 miles an hour, that is what everyone goes at, more of that speed, and that slows everyone down from the outset, rather than having a response. And the point about e-motos and e-bikes, this is also we've worked to address the e-motos at point of sale especially, and clarifying what are not e-bikes and what are not bikes, which don't belong in bike lanes. And those, it is already illegal. A lot of the devices are already illegal that you see. Yes, are illegal. And e-motos are required to have licensing and registration. And one policy push that we worked on was to require those at point of sale to have to get to have to show their license and registration to get an e-moto. And so separating them out from bikes, because also what we've found is, as you said, a lot of these things look similar and cops can't tell the difference. So then they'll stop people, harass people, whereas we're trying to, if we at the point of sale can just get the illegal ones out, and the e-motos out of bike lanes, then we're addressing it from like an active infrastructure from point of sale.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
I think Barbara has a question.
Well, I think we're going,
Going the other
we're on
way.
clock. Is that okay, Barbara? Unless, are you following up on Sophia's?
No, it's fine, fine.
I'll try not to take too long.
No, take your time. No,
so-
not too long.
Okay. I'll make it a class 3 question. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Patrick. I am currently a public member of Housing and Land Use and also part of the Public Safety Task Force, which is the capacity in which I'm here. First of all, thank you for bringing up the various vehicles in the bike lane that are already illegal. The Adams administration loved to keep talking about how many they seized. They seized about 62,000 unregistered vehicles, mostly two-wheelers over their administration. So if you think the licensing and registration laws are going to enforce themselves, I've got some bad news for you. But more importantly, thing I think we all have a question about, I think we all agree infrastructure could help this. Can you talk more about what we can do to kind of deconflict these like crosswalks and intersections so that pedestrians and e-bikes don't like run into each other?
So one thing is like a raised crosswalk, for example. So right now you're asking pedestrians to go down to street level, and that's why you have the curb cut. A raised intersection creates essentially like a speed bump. So a cyclist, somebody riding an e-bike, cars would have to slow down to go into the intersection. Otherwise they like launch off. It also, a lot of like these design infrastructure, things that help with infrastructure help. Even though we're designing them to maybe like slow down the bikes, slow down the cars, they also help everybody. So think about like in winter when the curb cut gets full of water or full of ice. If you had the raised crosswalk, that wouldn't be the low point on the street. And so that would like eliminate that problem. So that's like one infrastructure. That's one infrastructure solution to deconflict the crosswalk. Another thing would be to have, you see this in some intersections where the bike waiting zone is in front of the crosswalk instead of behind the crosswalk. Partially like as a cyclist, you are trying to see what's coming and see around the corner. That's, I yell at people, the crosswalk is lava. But that's something that could help. Or if those intersections were daylit, then like that would also deconflict. Up on the Upper East Side, we have a lot of streetlights, But in other neighborhoods, there's a lot of stop signs. So the crosswalk, having a daily intersection would deconflict the intersection and the crosswalk.
Thank you. Good ideas. Some of which are being discussed on transportation all the time. Jennifer, do you have a question? Are you-
I do. Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer Malsby. I'm a member of the task force. And my question, I want to state that all these stakeholders are incredibly important. This is complex. It's very sticky. There's not a lot of movement. There's a lot of very material roadblocks, no pun intended here. And I'm very empathetic to all of the stories. And in light of all of those things, is there, our community board is also thinking, and the Public Safety Task Force is also thinking about how we use our platform as a community board to ask the right questions or seek the right information or send a message to our public through new channels that we're trying to leverage, like social media. What question or what message would you want us to send? Keeping in mind our limitations of our role as, being mindful of all of the stakeholders in the room. Because I was really struck by Mr. Medina's message about the partnership that we want to develop with the bike riders and the workers in our community. And I know I personally, every time someone stops for me, I look and say, thank you, almost like, thank God you didn't take my life, but I look him in the eye, to him, and it's mostly, and of color, and I say, thank you. And he looks at me and says, you're welcome. And he does all the time. And I'm thinking that relationship that I'm developing with him is going to make him think twice about running my child over. So what message could we send that is mindful of all the stakeholders, but that is something that could perhaps move a dot for the personal relationship or the mission?
I think it's like everybody just wants a safe street. The delivery cyclists want to be safe. The commuter cyclist wants to be safe, the recreational cyclist, the pedestrian, like everybody wants to be safe, and kind of exactly what you're putting, like, let's humanize each other.
Yeah. Is it be safe? Is it just like mind the rules? Is it like be kind? Is it like, let's give our relief station, which is one of my personal interest things, so we humanize this. We have created this environment because we are we are the community that asks for the most food to be delivered in the whole city. And so we have to take accountability for that. So like, is it be safe? Is it follow the rules that exist? Is it?
I think to look out for one another.
Look out for one another.
And just, I really appreciate that sentiment. Councilmember Shahana Hanif has done in partnership with Deliveristas and pedestrian safety groups, has done like on link kiosks saying, okay, everyone, like, look out for your neighbors, be aware, yield to pedestrians. I think that being cognizant of the space and each other in the space is really important. And in terms of a question, one other piece I would say is, we have seen in the last several years just such an increase in all of the things on our streets, right? There is more personal delivery, right? A lot of people get Amazon once or twice a day delivered.
The last mile.
There's just a lot happening on our streets, right? There are more e-bikes, a lot than before. And we haven't really paused and said, how do we look holistically and look as like a city at how we're using our streetscape? We have a limited amount of space. We are a dense city. We have a lot of people, and we are all trying to move around in a way that is, to this point, cognizant and respectful of each other.
Safe,
and so that is an important piece. And then it's also, I think, on our government to say, okay, how do we look at all of the pieces here? And, so that Amazon isn't, blocking an entire street, right? Sometimes when I'm crossing as a pedestrian or a bike rider, the bike lane is blocked the entire street.
Or the potholes are so damaging that the poor bike riders have to now ride in the middle of the street because they can't ride on the side and they're riding right in front of
Yeah,
the
and-
cab or the whatever, which
And
happens too much now.
Exactly,
So yeah,
swerving
it's-
into the middle of the
it's a big-
street is
yeah.
unsafe for everyone, and I
So,
think
a lot of
that's little bit-
infrastructure on the
that's
city's part.
conversation
Yeah.
here, is how do we
Yeah.
look at all of these pieces together and say, there's a lot happening on our streets, it is in all of our interests to think about these pieces as a puzzle. And that is for drivers, for delivery workers, for pedestrians. There is real design answers there, that our city and our government just hasn't really done at a large scale yet.
It's a lagging, they're lagging behind. Like our whole economy
Reactive
changed
and not proactive.
in 10 years.
Exactly.
I think
And
you-
we
you
didn't
have to
change our
be
whole
board
street.
member.
Potholes have been around forever.
So
but
for
still, so many
mine-
problems.
Much worse this winter.
And afterwards,
Roz,
I will
let me-
talk,
let
because
me
we, at
move-
one point, we did try to get some of those things. I was one of the people who helped got the bike lanes, et cetera, so.
Let me move on
Talk to
to
you about
Ken,
that.
and then maybe
Community
you
board
can
was very active
respond
with it,
to
okay.
whatever Ken is going to say or ask and fold in your
Just a
comments.
simple, I think Sarah, okay.
I'm Ken Coughlin. I'm co-chair with Sophia of the Transportation Committee. First of all, I had a couple of questions, but an observation. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I've noticed a lot more compliance, particularly with the law, particularly among delivery workers, compared to, let's say, 2 or 3 years ago, when I would concede there were these gas-powered mopeds on the streets. If you remember, there were a lot of electric motos, many more than today, but also, I think the app company, the council has passed laws that have helped the app workers economically, and I think that's paying off. And so, Jennifer, I see a lot more people I want to thank, for stopping.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I've noticed
yeah.
that, absolutely.
So, this is good.
There's more to do with ice.
But just in terms of, there's a sense that, licensing is a magic bullet. So I want to ask you 2 questions, Elizabeth, or anybody else. One, what's been the experience with drivers? We have licenses this big on cars and trucks, and how's that working for us? And also, if we did license cyclists, who's most likely to get pulled over? And would regular cyclists get pulled over too?
Thank you for the questions. To the first point, I think what we see is in our city, we have over 200, many years, 250 New Yorkers who are killed in traffic crashes from vehicles every single year that are licensed, that have gone through those steps. So it's really to us made us take a step back and say, what is working on our streets and what's not working, and to just throw our hands up and say, this is as far as we can get, this is it. They've licensed, so we're just gonna accept that hundreds of people are killed on our streets every year. To us is not good enough and not okay, and that has led us to the place where we are now, saying let's look at everywhere else that has taken us to vision zero, that has taken us to 0 traffic fatalities. And just across the river in Hoboken, we have seen a dramatic decrease in traffic fatalities. Whether cars are, by licensed cars, through safe streets measures like daylighting, through putting all of these visibility, slow speed measures in, raised crosswalks, all things that slow everyone down and improve visibility so people can see each other. That is how we really get to vision zero and to 0 traffic deaths, which we believe is achievable and doable, and places around the world do it every single year. And we don't take it as a given that we have just gotten to the cap of safety on our streets. We believe we can go a lot further. And so those same rules apply to vehicles, to e-bikes, to bikes, right? The things that work for pedestrians not being killed by cars is the same that works for others around safe streets and designs. And that's really where we're trying to focus, because we are talking about hundreds of neighbors and New Yorkers, let alone thousands of people with serious injuries. And I say that with deep respect for everyone, not taking any of that for granted, but really saying what will get us to this further place. And then to your second question around
e-bikes and licensing and who gets stopped. I think what we, what happens is it becomes too often, saying someone is required to have a license, and if they don't have it, they get stopped and arrested, and in the, world of ICE, and people being targeted, I think we are deeply concerned about licensing being a pathway to deportation and to immigration attacks of communities in our city. So that is a really serious deep issue and concern of ours. And if it is not proven to work, if it is not shown to be effective in achieving its goals, the potential to have people arrested and deported and locked up is very scary to us. And we, work really closely with our partners at Los Libristas Unidos and saying, how do we, achieve our goals in a way that doesn't lead to further incarceration or criminalization of people?
And if we had
Can-
license,
can-
can I just?
I'm
No,
sorry,
you're gonna move.
no, I'm really sorry, but I
Okay.
have 10 minutes and I have
Okay.
all these people who still need to ask a
Okay.
question. I apologize. Howard?
So I will be really brief.
Thank
Thank you so much for coming. We talk about accountability and all of these important issues, but for me, I'm sorry, I'm getting over my cold. It's not COVID, I took a test. The big issue is safety. It's preventing it in the first place, not pointing fingers after, which is important, but the most important thing is safety. And I think people ride on the sidewalk, people go in all sorts of weird ways because they don't have a clear path to go. I don't think any biker, e-biker or regular biker really wants to ride on the sidewalk. They all prefer to ride in a safe, protected lane. And I think if we did that, if we made it safer, and this is the big thing, anyone who's been on the transportation committee knows, loading zones, if we had coherent street management, what you talked about, that streets have changed a lot since the 1950s. The use of the streets have changed a lot since the 1950s, and we have to change with it. I don't have all the answers, but we certainly have all the questions here. And I think what we need to do is to provide the kind of infrastructure that makes this issue moot, that creates safety without having to point fingers.
Thank you, Howard.
Anytime.
Linda, do you have a question?
No, I don't. I'm just here to listen and take time. So all these people have
Thank you.
questions, so I'm gonna be
I
quiet.
too will pass my time. Steve?
I'm Steve Anderson. I'm a public member of this task force. We're all in favor of public safety. And our concern is the #1 special interest group that we represent, which is the people who live here. And almost every elected official tell you that this topic is the topic that people speak about more than any other. People stop me in the street, happen to be involved in other city activities, and they're concerned about it. And yet I hear the same poignant comments over and over in hearings from people who have been harmed, people who care passionately, people who are reasonable and people who are unreasonable. I don't see progress. I don't see significant enough progress. And I know there's interest groups involved and other people have, claims about what they care about and who they represent a lot. People don't care about that. They care about being on the street. And they care about not having the anxiety because more and more of us are seniors. And plenty of us don't move as fast as we used to and aren't as capable as used to, and we feel nervous about it. And it's like quicksand. All these arguments, everyone's got good ideas, everyone's got good objections. Good objections to this isn't right, we need this, we need long-term planning, we know that. It's distressingly upsetting over and over to hear the same reports of injuries, of claims that this won't work, this didn't work. And to think that it's polarized people in such a way, why the hell can't we get together and at least take some baby steps that might work? There's no guarantee. And why is it that you think we haven't made progress in addressing this issue? Any significant way that most people would agree is the right direction.
I think we're just looking at a big paradigm shift, right? Like kind of what I alluded to. When delivery cyclists kind of started, they worked largely for the restaurants. They had to wear the vest with the restaurant name. They had an ID number on the back, right? Now they're working largely for an app company, what we talked about, Amazon. I mean, I live in the Bronx. You guys have way more delivery cyclists than I do, because simply people in the community can't.
The most in the
afford it.
city.
We have the most in the city.
Yeah, like my people can't afford. So like, and I've stopped ordering from the app companies because what I saw was some things that were going like, I thought immorally. And so I voted with my wallet. Same thing with like a lot of things delivered to my house. I don't buy those anymore, those things anymore because we don't have loading zones. Like these people are parked everywhere. They're not creating a community that I think is enjoyable. So I have to wrap my mind around, like, I've grown up with the thing that is causing the most injuries. So there's no paradigm shift for me when I see like a car approaching me, but there is a like when I'm biking, I see people's faces. I'll stop at the red light and I see the like, oh, you stopped, or, oh, thank you. And so like, I totally get it. And like I said, I was hit too. And I had things from a concussion for 6 weeks, right? Or more. And so I think the biggest thing that we have to wrap our mind around is that there is this paradigm shift that we're noticing things because it wasn't there 10 years ago. And we're all old enough in this room to recognize, like, we remember the before time. And we're now in the in-between time, and we haven't gotten to the things are settled time. And I think there are things that we all agree on. I think everybody at this table agrees on the class 3 point of sale ban. Like, I think we all agree on that. I think we can all agree 20 is plenty. We can all agree that 20 is plenty. I think we can all agree that if somebody runs a red light, there should be a consequence for it. I think accountability is important. So there are things that we all agree on. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Why don't we just start with the things we all agree on? I think we all agree that the app companies need to be regulated. Like, let's start with that. I mean, when my partners in Los Deliveristas Unidos say that they get penalized if they stop for more than 45 seconds, like, that's a cycle of a life. That shouldn't happen. And so we already have some of the pieces. Let's start with some of the pieces that we all agree on, and then we can fight over the other parts about it, or we can disagree, or we can pilot some things. Like, there's stuff that we can do that we all agree on various proposals. So let's start with those. I agree with you.
I'll also just, one point Ken made about things also seem to be changing, and I think we are seeing progress, is I will point to a law around a minimum pay requirement for delivery workers. So delivery workers now are required to get paid by the minute, which means a shift or a delivery, right, it incentivizes safety, right, versus incentivizing speed. And that shift is really critical. That you don't have to say, oh, I need to make this delivery in 5 minutes, even though that's unsafe, because I'm getting paid per minute. So if I go slow for 10 and a normal 10-minute ride, that's actually the better choice. So we have seen a shift with that. However, as William talked about, the app companies are now retaliating for delivery workers trying to go at safe, normal speeds and saying, we'll kick you off the apps if you do that. So there are to Ken's point, there are policies that are changing things. And then there's also, you know, I would say the app companies are a big player here of trying to roll that back and trying to restrict that. And if we can really go in there and say, no, safety has to be the lead and the priority first and foremost for everyone, then you're also setting the tone on the streets more. And if you have a much safer practice of 70,000 people on the street, we're all gonna feel that. And to the point made of this district also has a very high number, right? You're feeling at a more intensive rate.
Right.
So I do think that would also, if we continue those measures, and really dive in, that we would see more progress too.
Okay, let's move on to John.
Okay, been sitting here for 2 hours listening and
Thank you.
heard a bunch of things, trying to, and to say how I'm understanding this whole discussion, but there's just a piece of the, kind of the endpoint in the what we do that I'm not getting. Seems to be like a hole in all of this. So I've driven cars, I mostly exist as a pedestrian, frequently have spent time as a pedestrian with a small child. I've got a 4.5-year-old who's raised in this neighborhood. I've been a biker. I've been badly injured in a car crash. I have a very good friend who was hit by an e-bike and had a concussion. So I've seen all the things. I get all the things. And, you know, I'm hearing different perspectives. Okay, you did the point of sale ban for certain types of e-bikes. Fine, but nothing stops you from bringing an e-bike into the city or changing the chip that speed governs it. I hear, that we should do infrastructure. 100% agree, like our infrastructure needs to be improved. We also need to rejigger our management of street use of loading zones at Amazon and sidewalks. All true, but we can't wait for that to happen, to solve this problem. The apps, big problem, 100% agree. It's like the Domino's pizza 30-minute guarantee from the early 90s, which was a huge controversy, except
Yes.
there's a lot less accountability because the apps don't directly employ the drivers. So they need workers' comp. They need a fairer system for how their incentives work. And frankly, the app should be held liable, especially when they're the ones who are driving these incentives. Like, I get that too. You know, everyone who orders delivery food is part of this deal. We don't enforce the law. Again, like, I get that. Here's the problem. If you have a system of unlicensed e-bikes and a police officer stops them to enforce the law, what they did in the past was they gave them traffic tickets. And then they just didn't show up in court, and there was no hook on requiring them to show up because there was no license. If I get stopped for running a red light in my car, officer sees my license. If I don't show up in court, I'm gonna get arrested for driving without a license the next time I get pulled over. With a bike, it doesn't work that way because there's no hook and people aren't showing it. So they started issuing the criminal summons, which was hugely controversial. I get it. It shouldn't be a crime to run a red light. The last thing we want to do is drag people into the Trump vortex of immigration law for this sort of a thing. But without licensing, I'm not understanding how there is a way that we can actually enforce traffic laws. As it involves e-bikes, which are qualitatively different than regular bikes. They're faster, they're heavier, and we can do all the things. We can do the infrastructure, we can do the street use, we can do the apps. But at the end of the day, like, you gotta enforce the law, and there's gonna be a hook to it that doesn't involve going straight to criminal court. So without licensing, how is that supposed to work?
So currently, if you get a ticket and it requires you to go to court, you cannot pay it, just like drivers get tickets and don't pay theirs and rack up a lot of money. But then if you get another one and a cop stops you, they can arrest you, right? Like, you can't just walk around without all these tickets. You can, but that's like certainly not a way that I would live life. So I think if the rule applies, it works the same for vehicles, right? Like, a lot of drivers rack up a bunch of traffic tickets.
But they have licenses that can get suspended, and bicyclists.
Yeah, and 75% of people with suspended licenses drive anyway.
Yeah.
So, if you want, I'm just saying, it's like, if you
That's a
wanna,
problem.
I think. Look, there is no silver bullet here, right? I get that we're all looking for a silver bullet. I don't think we have one.
That's not true. We're not looking for
Yeah,
silver.
I have to jump in as a former criminal defense
Okay.
attorney. I
Okay,
don't
thank you.
think,
I'm not.
well, I don't know if you're gonna like where I'm going. I don't think I don't think the fact that people who have suspended, I represented these people with suspended licenses, or the fact that people don't pay their tickets and throw their hands up and say, well, let them catch me if they, I don't think the fact that those people are out there means we shouldn't have enforcement.
Oh, yeah, I don't
don't think that's,
No,
the-
yeah.
I
Like,
don't think the
I
solution
just think-
follows.
Yeah,
My husband got a red light ticket on his bike. He stopped, he got the ticket. his driver's license ended up being suspended. There was like a paper, he didn't pay the ticket and, but his license got suspended and then we're also car owners, our car registration got suspended as a result. So there was like an enforcement mechanism. There is an enforcement mechanism when you get the ticket.
But if you
Sometimes
have a
it takes.
driver's license to suspend.
Yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
like, I don't mean to say, yeah.
It's,
Like, there could be different enforcement mechanisms depending upon who you are, if you have a license, but, that doesn't mean, we're not calling for no enforcement.
No.
Like, if you run a red, you should get, if you break the law. you
So,
should.
so I think what we have here, John, is kind of an agree to disagree. We'll
Yeah.
have to wrangle
Yeah,
around the
I mean,
policy so we
look,
can get to Dan.
That's fine. And I spent 10 years working on this issue in Washington State when I worked for the city of Seattle. I don't know New York law as well, but like, I get these things are complicated.
Yeah.
Court systems are weird and we need a solution to it at the end of the day. Therefore, so it's not criminal.
I can just give a brief point of information on how it does work here. As of 2016, there was a law passed, the Criminal Justice Reform Act, that allowed for certain offenses. I'm not sure if it includes all traffic offenses at this time. But police have the option to issue a civil summons instead of a criminal summons for certain specified offenses. And they can choose to issue a criminal summons instead for a bunch of reasons. Among them, if you have failed to appear for your civil summons repeatedly, I think the threshold is, I forget if it's 2 or 3 times, but they have that data, it shows up, and when that happens, they can choose to arrest you on the spot. And if you then fail to appear for that one, now there's a warrant out for your arrest, and it's a serious problem if you get stopped for any reason.
Yeah, but if you don't need a license, how do they even
Your
necessarily?
ID.
Your ID.
Anyway, we
Okay.
can argue about this.
That's your
more.
license.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan,
Okay, I'm gonna be a little less diplomatic this time, though. I want to follow where he was going. I find this conversation not just disappointing, but dispiriting. And spent at least 80% of the time on secondary issues, deflections, and distractions.
you're talking about today or last
In
month and
general.
today?
Well, mostly today.
Okay, I just want to
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, and
Because we've
so
been
I want to
talking
try
about e-bikes for
I want to put some things in context and respond to some of these arguments, which I frankly find absurd. Okay, we are missing the point about cars and the way we regulate them, and this conversation about e-bikes. We're focusing so much on enforcement and penalties and things like that. The primary reason we have regulation of automobiles and the laws we have, and it is imperfect, but it's a system of deterrence. We've created a system that disincentivizes bad behavior, right? I do not speed when I'm on I-95. And I have my little app saying there's cars coming, police cars on, because I don't want to pay a $300 speeding ticket. Okay, I obey the traffic laws, partly because I want to be a good citizen, but I don't want to get points on my license, right? These things work. So the idea that because we can find flaws in the system, discredits the whole system is just ridiculous. It is not worthy of this conversation. So please, I beg you, let's stop pointing to the flaws in the way we regulate cars as a justification. I'm particularly bothered by this idea that, oh my God, if we have some regulatory system for e-bikes, immigrants, and particularly undocumented immigrants, are going to be unfairly singled out, okay? We don't have an exception when it comes to, like we were talking about before, deliveries by cars, DoorDash, Uber Eats. We don't have a separate system. More importantly, there's been a real problem in this country in stopping people of color and singling them out for punishment for driving. That is a problem. It's disgusting. It needs to be addressed. But that is a problem of enforcement, not an indictment of the entire system. So to use the potential of an abuse as an argument against having any kind of regulatory system is totally unpersuasive. Again, not worthy of our time. Okay, I think we should start by acknowledging there's a serious problem here, and whether you can discuss how serious the problem is. We hear it all the time from our constituents. I myself experience, I have a 5-year-old daughter. I am scared to cross the street with her because there are so many e-bikes that are e-bike drivers that are behaving bad. Okay, so this is not an argument against dealing with the app companies. as John was pointing out, it's not an argument for dealing with infrastructure. They're not mutually exclusive. However, if we don't get to the heart of the matter of creating disincentives for bad behavior and irresponsible conduct, this problem is not going away, and public frustration is going to only grow, right? So my request to the transportation alternative, the bike lobby that has been fighting this, is to engage in a constructive way with credible arguments. Again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but your point about the Toronto study is totally inapplicable to this conversation. It's about bicycles, pedaling bicycles, not e-bikes. Okay, so it really shouldn't be part of this conversation. Okay, so let's start, if we're gonna there's things we can agree on, let's agree this is a serious problem. People are scared, right? And we need some solutions. And it would be really helpful, maybe, to have some compromises on the part of the people who've been opposing any regulatory structure to acknowledge, right? The gentleman talked about Amsterdam. I don't know if that is the right solution, right? But that seems like a reasonable starting point, right? To have some kind of regulatory system for the most dangerous e-bikes, okay? I'm just begging to engage in a different way so we can find a solution and make some progress on this issue. Otherwise, the backlash is you're going to invite regulation and anger that you don't like. It's going to be even more extreme than what's being proposed now.
Thanks for the invitation. I think that's why we're here. I think.
But that's not the message, with all due respect, that's not the message you delivered at the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah, never.
Which I found very unproductive.
I get like like anytime that you talk about safety, I'm gonna say something bad, but on the way home last night, there was a moped in the bike lane, scared me. I told him to get out. I definitely said not nice things to him. I was like, you don't belong here, like, go away. I hope that thing has happened. So like, I get it. I get what we're all talking about. And that's why this is not my territory. I'm in the Bronx and Uptown, like Harlem and above. Those are the communities that I represent, but I'm here to listen. And my colleague asked me to come because I do feel a lot of the same things that I'm hearing from people as a cyclist, as a pedestrian, as a person who thinks like my worldview is mine, like my elderly aunt who lives in Florida that is the person who I am picturing whenever I advocate for anything on the streets. And so like, I get it. I think that the fear is well founded. And I think that like that thing that's happening, that's real. That's a real feeling. And I don't think that we ever mean to be dismissive. I think it's also, like, I have to be, I ride a Costco and e-bike. Like it's a tool that has helped me do commute, saves me money, gets me exercise. It's a very valuable tool. And like, you cannot deny that your community finds it to be a very valuable tool too.
Right, I don't think you've heard anyone here say, get rid of e-bikes.
Yeah.
It's to regulate them in a way that ensures there are deterrents against irresponsible and reckless behavior.
Okay. Thank you. Roz, you haven't talked in a while. I am mindful of the time because we will lose the room at some point, right, Linda? At some point. And Barbara has waited so patiently.
Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Roz, go ahead and say what you have to say, and then Barbara will get the last
I
word.
was going to say have been said, like the fact that.
Well, then you need not repeat them, but say something new.
Yeah, right, and the accountability and so on. I think the idea, why don't we go back, for instance, to those vests? Let's look for the things that the vests. I mean, yes, if you are driving for 3 different apps, so you should have 3 different placard things that you're wearing, whether, that give that kind of accountability.
So we know who you're working for.
They don't need to set up a whole big interest, and the vast majority of the problems are that. I would say also that, you keep saying that e-bikes are not bikes, except that there's a huge difference between the class 1 and the class 2. ironically, I came here as an e-bike rider. I haven't been riding my e-bike most of the winter. I've been riding my pedal bike. And I get there just as fast and I'm thrilled with my fitness and so on. Oh, I am. I mean, but the point is that the class 1 and 2 bikes are just not in the same category. So that's something we can certainly agree on. Let's start there. And the point, the observation that you were making about the mopeds that have to have plates, and more of them seem to have plates, and those are the people who are following rules, and, you know, it makes sense because they're much more.
Or should be following it, so.
Yeah, and so some things do work. We are getting somewhere with some things.
Barbara, I think you're going to have the last word. No need to jump.
So I'm Barbara Adler. I'm co-chair of the Parks and Environment Committee here of Cedars Devon. We held a public hearing here last month. It was specifically about pedestrians trying to cross the drives in Central Park. This room was filled to capacity and we had 60 or 80 people online to speak as well. I would say that 99% of them were all in favor of Priscilla's law, and they were all in favor of banning bikes from the park, period.
E-bikes.
Oh, e-bikes from the park, excuse me,
true.
absolutely.
Not true.
I don't want to repeat what's already said. I agree with what these three
They got rid of the
gentlemen
cars.
said. Exactly, really. I think we have been told by the police numerous times by the commanding officer, sorry about my voice, I don't know what's happening. The commanding officer of the Central Park precinct, that they cannot control bikes that are speeding, that are going, because it's too dangerous to go chasing after them. If they were a license plate, you could take a picture of it, and that would be that. But you can't do that when bikes are weaving in and out of traffic without causing an accident or potentially causing an accident. So for me, that made perfect sense. We've been told that over and over and over again. So with all due respect, I don't understand why the TA is so opposed to licensing and registering e-bikes, all e-bikes. It just seems like, as everybody here has said, it just seems the logical way to go. And there is a bill now before the city council, which I'm sure you know, which has a good chance of passing this time around. And I believe that the state of New Jersey is requiring, as of January 2026, they're requiring all e-bikes to be registered now. And, you know, we're all concerned about illegal immigrants here. Nobody wants to see the immigrants, which we have all depended on for numerous things here, to be arrested or you know, have issues in any way. However, I don't understand why DoorDash, et cetera, can't buy a fleet of bikes, register them, and be the ones that are responsible. These people are working for those people. And I don't understand why that's not being discussed. They're very wealthy.
Look good.
Just seems
On
the way.
that point, we very much support that, and there is a pending bill for that, and I think that goes to us. There's a larger structural, like, kind of structural approach there, where someone mentioned the DMV. If we had sort of a DMV situation for delivery work, I think that would be really helpful, because you could have, the companies required to buy the devices, required to buy, you know, vests, have there be an accountability system, and then you have a full system where also there's a grievance process. If you are a delivery worker and the app company is mistreating you, and under the DMV, right, there's protections for everyone. There is like an actual system. The vehicles are maintained, they are checked in on. If
They're only the legal vehicles.
they're only the legal
We haven't
vehicles,
touched
the
the
safe
battery
ones.
things.
So we, and versus, I think, what we see this one as is, this proposed bill as kind of a reactive individual focused on it's kind of after the fact on individuals, which really concerns us versus saying, let's create a larger DMV-like system where, and there would be an ID, right? So there would be an employee ID that is connected and you can track all the
Exactly.
data.
Okay, so I have one little question before we end, and I know James is anxious to wrap this up.
No.
You talked about the class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes and the max speed that they go, but when there's pedal assist, they're a lot faster, aren't they?
No, so my bike, my class 1 e-bike, the assist stops at 18 miles an hour. And like I said, I generally go 10 to 14, have my speedometer. So mine is it's speed limited. And I know you said like, I could not do that, change the chip or whatever.
Hey, it can be done.
It can be done. But so the bikes are speed limited. And so I can reach a higher speed, but I can only reach a higher speed like if I'm going downhill.
Okay, but you have class 1.
Yes.
Maybe it's just involving class 2 and 3.
No,
I have
2 is
read.
the same. 2 is the same.
2 gets capped at 20.
Yeah, same.
It's still
And-
faster with a heavy bike.
Even when you're pedaling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
pedal, if
The
you
3 is the
exclusively use your own power, you can make it go faster.
Yes,
Electric
yeah, that's
assist
what I
can
mean.
go
Right,
power.
right.
Yeah, but you
That's
can do
what
that on
I'm
manual.
But like
as
on a
well.
regular bike, I can,
Yeah.
I cannot, I am not that.
They're just not as
athlete,
heavy
but
as
athletes
the
go
e-bike.
30 miles an hour.
Yeah, but the difference is.
Yeah.
On a regular
The difference, it's like 30
Yeah.
pounds. That's not.
It's 150 pounds.
So,
For the
and
class
and
three.
that's, I.
150 pounds for a
And
class
I just
2.
wanna say, like, we are here because we take safety very seriously, we take this conversation very seriously, and we wanna talk through a lot of different options and ideas. And what you say about the different class bikes, if we see a real opportunity to say, hey, let's get these fastest, heaviest ones off the street, and the way to do that is not by stopping and arresting people, but by just literally taking them out of operation.
So-
the
so
store,
let
a
me-
point of sale, and you can do that online too, right? Like, what you can say, you cannot, these companies cannot deliver to a business or an operation that has a New York City address, and because they are only in New York City, they're not allowed in surrounding states. You kind of address the concern, I think, to be raised of like just hopping over to New Jersey and buying them, because there is a New York City market that we can kind of fully address. And I do think that would make a real difference in feeling what's happening on the street and the stress that we are feeling. And we take that very seriously. And I think we're trying to look at solutions that you can like.
So you're focused on the class 3, you're focused on the app accountability, but you're categorically opposed to Priscilla's.
We just have it.
Just, I'm just asking a yes or no.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. That's all we need to know. We don't have
We're
to
not
know.
gonna,
That's all we need to know. That's all we need to know.
Just comment on something that Barbara mentioned.
Yes, and then you'll have.
Yeah. Transportation co-chaired that meeting with Parks as well on the crossings in Central Park. And I just want to correct the record because it was said that the majority of people supported licensing, and I counted the comments and it was half and half. So I just want to say that. And to my understanding, it was Captain Caliente that said that it was hard to do enforcement because the speedometers, they can't recognize,
do the
because-
count.
right? Is that, okay, got it. Just wanted.
But
just
I
wanted
had
to
spoken
clarify.
to the Central Park, the commanding officer before the one we have now.
Got
I've
it,
been
okay.
into his office. And he sat us down and he explained exactly why it's so difficult
Okay,
and so
got it.
dangerous to go after these bikes.
Got it.
And it was not only involving Central Park at that time, but it was also involving Riverside Park and the fact that it loaded with bicycles and, not bicycles, but, motorcycles.
Yeah.
can I ask a question though, since.
Go ahead, Jen.
I really don't understand why you're so hell-bent on protecting the rights of e-bikes to be in public parks.
You're asking me that?
Well, the broader
Okay, yeah.
CPA bike lobby, I'm trying to understand, given the level of concern that's out there and the safety risk, and they are categorically different than regular bikes. Why are you so, they are. They're categorically different.
Oh, wait, you didn't finish.
So,
Yeah.
well, why is it so important? Like, why does that interest trump the interest of the safety of the people who are concerned about the threat that poses?
I'm not saying it.
Are you asking
Okay,
Sophia,
then
or
what-
are you asking our guests?
Well, I'm
Dan-
asking
Dan,
the
you
people
should
arguing
ask-
against
I would ask
regulation.
them,
Dan, you
it's
should
not-
ask the Central Park Conservancy because they oppose it also.
I'm against license.
I will ask them, but I have a chance to engage with you all here, and you're opposed to it. So I'm trying to understand, why does that interest trump the interest, broader interest of safety?
Because
and
it's
the concern?
completely unenforceable. It would be terrible. And you don't have enough cops in the city to enforce it.
The one thing that licenses do, and I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to interject, is that we have cameras everywhere and you can take a photo of their licenses. That's the only
I
difference.
really wish that DOT study was public, because I think that would be so helpful.
But
for
we're not
this
talking about, we're talking about in parks, right?
Yeah.
Which have special rules already. There are no electric, there are no cars in parks.
I'm not.
We got them out of them. It was part of that group.
The argument is.
Okay, because we're not hearing it from them.
Agree with, right? I mean, like, regular bikes require a certain level of physical condition to ride, you get sweaty, whatever. Like, if you're just going for a nice slow cruise in Central Park, it can be very pleasant to do so on an e-bike, and that opens up the opportunity for people who can't ride a regular bike. That's fine. I mean, I guess my take is I don't have a problem with e-bikes specifically, if we could have a consistently enforced speed limit that really and truly applied to everyone, but it expands the number of people who can bike in the park. At the end of the day, that's what it is. My view is the speed is the problem and enforcement has to be put. I don't know, I hope they got that right, but I think that's essentially what it is.
And I hear that you're saying that Central Park is a place only for recreation, but that's not true for a lot of people. And like, maybe you are representing your micro community, but Central Park is for the entire city. So somebody coming from the Bronx going to Brooklyn, going through Central Park is a really important community pathway. And maybe that's not how you like to see Central Park, but it's separated, it's protected, it's quiet, it's breathable air.
I mean, to get across from east to west, I grew up on 83rd and Lexington. Go to the park to get to the west side. That is a community transportation. mode.
Yeah, the transverse is absolutely, but don't tell me that when you're on the park ride, that's a commuter's haven, when you've got Fifth Avenue, you've got, I helped get the bike lanes for Columbus Avenue, you have avenues.
You
for
want to
going
ride a
down there.
bike down Fifth
All right.
Avenue?
Folks,
You've got to get the bike lanes on Central Park West.
Hold on, it's 8:56. Patrick says he's gonna end on a higher note. I'm gonna let you say something, but then I'm gonna let Austin have the last word because
Yeah,
he's our
Member of the
he's our member of the public. And then I do have a couple of housekeeping notes. I want to say, though, I do not believe in meetings that go till 9 o'clock at night as a rule. I know that's the history of this community board, but I am so against that. However, I want to thank you all for hanging in there because you care about safety. I really want to say a big thank you. I know we don't agree on everything, but we do agree that we care about safety, and that's what matters, right? So thanks to everyone. Patrick, go, and then Austin, Mr. Amsterdam brought that infrastructure in here. You'll go last, and then I'm gonna say a couple little housekeeping things.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong. So all three of you over there. I think a lot of this this disagreement here comes down to how much you think e-bikes are more similar to cars versus more similar to regular bikes. You've said you think they're a lot more similar to cars.
I didn't say they're a lot more similar. They are similar enough where they present more of a public safety threat than regular bikes.
This is a point where we disagree, and I think it's kind of the central point of disagreement. The reason I am personally opposed to vehicle level licensing is I think it's not gonna work. And I think it's not gonna work because it's a lot easier to just get a new bike that is not licensed and ride it around than it is to get a new car that is also unlicensed. Now, we can absolutely discuss this more. I think Roz's proposal of like rider level, especially for delivery driver licensing, that could work. That could be very effective. I might even support that depending on how it's structured. But I think this is a fruitful area of discussion we should maybe focus in on more.
Yeah.
As one of the three.
Interesting.
May I
Yes.
respond?
Go ahead, Steve.
I think most bike riders and most e-bike riders are pretty responsible people, and they care too, about safety. And, most gun owners are pretty responsible with their guns. They lock them up, they separate the bullets, they register, they teach their children, okay? that the gun lobby is against every step that would restrict. It's a slippery slope. We can't restrict anything. It's wrong, even people who are disturbed. And that's a little bit, I think, of the sentiment that is sometimes passed.
Yes.
About in this discussion, that we're against anything that restricts. And sometimes maybe there has to be a change, and you have to change your approach. And I think it's not about,
100%.
it's not about not knowing the difference between a bike and an e-bike.
We are gonna continue the discussion. There will be further discussion at the next meeting of parks. There will be in the March meeting.
March 16th.
There's always ongoing discussion at transportation, including some innovative thinking about e-bikes that will be coming up. So there will be ongoing conversations about e-bikes in the parks and e-bikes on the street and how we classify e-bikes. So we're not done with e-bikes. And hopefully forward motion. Austin, I want to give you the last word on this topic, and then I want to mention the precinct meetings that are coming up for those who are interested. I'm sure they'll be talking about e-bikes too. Go ahead, Austin.
What else is there?
I was gonna make a couple of points on the topic of speed and similarity. This came up in the January meeting, but I'm surprised it actually didn't come up here when you're talking about speed and the fastest bikes. I was actually in Central Park before this meeting. I was taking a ride with my dad who just came back from Florida. And there were plenty of city bikers. There were some deliveries at this point. They were not the fastest people in the park. The racers, spandex, they were the fastest. They were the ones swerving the most. And you're talking about, oh, what their speed cap. They can hit 35, 40, 45.
Absolutely.
And because I've done the entire Greenway, and I think if you go far enough, you hit that huge downhill.
They typically don't obey the crosswalk.
They don't obey the crosswalk. I hit that huge downhill.
And they're in there.
No.
For
And they're wearing
decades, of course.
spandex.
Yes.
I hit on I've gone faster on my personal bike than I ever could, even before they started implementing the speed limiters more strictly on the city bikes. And I think that's something to consider in the conversation.
Yes.
You wanna have, it's not just about like threading needle, you want something that everybody can respond to. Because there will be another window here, another window there, and I know you're making a point about finding flaws with the system, and I do believe like, obviously, like, you can't use system flaws to completely delegitimize the system, but I think if we're in an opportunity to create something new and create a new regulatory system, we can use those flaws as a point of reference to respond and codify something else. That's why something like getting rid of the class 3 e-bikes, that is clear cut. And the other thing, infrastructure definitely plays a role. You mentioned Fifth Avenue. I can say personally, there are two ways I used to get down to NYU. I would either go down 7th Avenue to the Furman Center and Washington Square Park, or I would go down 5th Avenue to the East Village. And I can say with full confidence, I am a very different rider on 7th Avenue than I am on 5th Avenue, because I am a very defensive, aggressive rider. And I'm like, I know these cars are not paying attention to me. I know these big SUVs will run me over, so I have to assert myself. 7th Avenue, I can lay back a little bit. I'm actually a little bit slower on 7th Avenue. I'm like, where the pedestrians, where the cyclists, okay, cool. If the car's turning, I'll make a little note of the car's turning, but that bike lane is there, that protection is there. And people respond to their environment, people respond to that, to the climate, cars, pedestrians, even in snow, and when people were cycling. I tried biking when it was like 3 degrees, not a good decision, but I was because there was the bike lanes weren't completely clear. I was much slower because I knew if I went over that ice, I would be on the ground. I probably would be able to walk away, but I would be hurt.
I like your note. People respond to their surroundings. And that's a really good note for all the different stakeholders, as Jennifer used the term, in this conversation. And if we keep that in mind, then maybe we can come to a place where we can be thinking of all those people responding to their surroundings on our streets and try and build a better community for them. So thank you for your thoughts. Let me quickly tell you all about the precinct meetings. No obligation to attend, but just in case you want to. I see you, Ken. I see you trying to go, but you want to go to the Central Park Precinct meeting, Ken, at 7 PM on Wednesday of this week. 24th precinct meeting is Wednesday, March 18th at 7 PM. And then the 2-0 is Monday, March 23rd at 7 PM. Again, no obligation to attend, but if anyone on this task force or any of our guests want to attend, and
I can say the 20th is quite a special meeting. If you want to come join me there every month. And that, the e-bikes have been discussed very much lately.
Central Park, it always comes up,
Yeah.
of course.
And it's
So-
a recitation of the stats, of the comp stat numbers. How many robberies, how many burglaries, how many.
I like the
I
meetings.
saw your tweet about the Upper West Side the other day, holy moly.
Yeah. Anybody want to move us to adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, thank you.
What was the,
Praise the Lord.
I heard it from-
Thank you, everybody.
Talk about
Okay,
the
we have to do
increase,
this.
the significant increase in the crime statistics for the Upper West Side.
We're not doing items